It's going to have like about 1 minute delay probably, huh?
Let's hope so.
Oh, there it just went live.
Beautiful. That's less than a minute.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in yet again for another Monday live episode of what we've decided, or really I decided to call GLOBEBUSTERS. So this is episode 5, starring me, Jeran. And with me this week, as with the previous weeks, is Bob, or Xanadude60, and TJ. Oh, now I got a problem. Gotta take my volume down here. There we go. And we've got TJ Chambers, owner of Smokescreen Design. And we've got my owner, my wife, Missa.
Hello.
So first things first, I just wanted to mention anyone who's waiting for the details for the time to launch. I've gotten all the bids and kind of put together a little package, so I will be making a video that will be out hopefully tomorrow, possibly Wednesday, that will kind of cover the details as far as that goes, so people can place their orders. And looks pretty good. Doesn't look like it'll be too expensive, and I'll cover all that and the fact that you're going to need to have your own camera. And then also I've been kind of looking around at eBay and some other places trying to get an idea for about the price that you should be able to find a camera that's not too bad that you can add to the payload. So that should be out, like I said, Wednesday probably at the latest. And let's go to Bob first. Bob is going to tell us about a video I haven't had a chance to see yet by Mr. Thrive and Survive. So Bob, take it away.
All right. Hello, everybody. Glad to be back in Denver. Well, not really, but I am back in Denver. And it's been a very interesting week so far with some of the new videos coming out. I was pretty excited to see a video that Rich, Mr. Thrive and Survive, came out with. And I'm going to put that link in there in the chat group again, except without the www because it stops me from doing that. So I'm going to put that in there right now. Okay, and anyway, this video is extraordinary because Rich basically looked at a video by a person by the name of Ashley Webster, who did a video called Flat Earth, Tides and the Electromagnetic Energy of the Sun and Moon, which I'll drop that link in here in just a minute also. But he was able to take that and look at the diamagnetic properties of water, which basically means that water has a natural magnetic field opposition. In other words, it repulses away from a magnetic field. So if you take like a neodyne magnet and hold it next to water, it will actually repel it away. So anyway, Mr. Thrive and Survive Rich took this video and he modeled it with the sun and the moon as they go around between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, and basically showed how the electrical activity of the sun and the moon were splitting along the equator, or causing the waves and the weather patterns to roll off clockwise on the northern hemisphere and counterclockwise on the southern hemisphere. And the case that he lays out for it is absolutely extraordinary. So I was super excited when I saw that. I really believe he's onto something there, and I think it's a big solution for one of the problems that we constantly get asked about in Flat Earth. Of course, in a Flat Earth, we don't believe that there really is any technical Coriolis effect from any spin anyway, because we don't believe that it's spinning. However, with the Earth's, with the sun and the moon going around in orbit above the circle of the Earth, that is something that absolutely can cause the Coriolis effect as far as weather patterns spinning as it goes around in between the tropics, and over the equator. So fantastic video, everybody. I highly recommend you watch it. And then let me go ahead and throw this other link in here. And oops, it's not going to let me post it with the www in there. So there's the YouTube link. And that is to the Ashley Webster video. I don't remember if I put the part 1 or part 2 in there, but you need to watch them both. The entire part 1 is contained in the Mr. Thrive and Survive video. And like I said, absolutely fantastic. Everybody's got to watch this because I think this is a big solution for Flat Earth. And other than that, I guess I can hand it over to TJ. TJ?
Okay, now I'm off mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure this out one day.
It just takes me a couple minutes to flip from tabs to figure out where's the unmute button. Well, hello everyone. I'm TJ, and yeah, actually I watched some of her stuff because it gets posted in our group and Facebook group and everything, and she's got some really interesting videos. And I've got a saltwater fish tank, and I've thought about getting some magnets and just playing around with that and see what I could come up with. And the magnetic fields and everything that we have on Earth, it just blows my mind. Just what that does and the effects that it causes. And I mean, it's in a sense it's an invisible force that we don't see, and we just see the effects of it. And I'm the more that time's gone along, the more videos that we are seeing come out, which is really fascinating. It's growing so rapidly. I've seen videos like weekly of people saying, I just found out about the flat earth and now I was trying to disprove it and I thought it was all fake and a lie. And then I'm starting to realize, no, this is real. This is something to take serious. And there are so many videos and so much information coming out for the flat earth and against the ball earth that it's just mind blowing right now. So there's just so many videos that I just can't even watch them all, and I've got life, so I would love to watch them all. I had I was sharing with Bob, I think it was last night as I was going to bed, that I talked with a friend of mine. He's retired federal employee. He was a weather serviceman. He did time up in the North Pole region, and he was part of just some different projects, and he was sharing with me that today the weather, whether it's the federal government or other weather agencies, whatever, but they still launch weather balloons, and it just kind of shocked me because I thought that all the weather was just monitored by satellites. I mean, we've got so many satellites in the air, and we've got all this technology that it didn't make sense to me that we still have to send up weather balloons so we can find out, well, what's going on with the weather all across the world. So he was telling me that there's a grid. I know everybody likes that word today, but there's a grid. It's about every 200 miles in the United States that a weather balloon is sent up, and they're sent up 2 times a day, 12 hours apart. And the weather balloons, they go up about he said was 100,000 feet. Yeah, 100,000 feet up. Now, of course, on the globe, there's no such thing as up, as what we're told. But they get sent 100,000 feet up, and I forget. He's just throwing like terms at me, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But it's got some type of device on it that can monitor the temperature and all kinds of weather-related information that is needed. And I mean, you think about sending those up. I mean, that's really expensive. The equipment comes down, and then they have tags on it for people to mail it in. And then they gather all the data. He said all the data is sent to Maryland. They process it, and it's made available to all the weather stations and whatever. And he said there's a partnership with Canada. They have weather balloons. Mexico has weather balloons. Russia. All these different countries have weather balloons that get sent up. So there's this behind-the-scenes cooperations with these various countries that have these devices that they send out, so they can all know what the weather is that's leaving one country going to the other. And so I found that really fascinating myself because, we're all supposed to be enemies and fighting each other, but the weather groups are all sharing this information. And he's, I mean, I didn't talk to him about the flat earth or anything like that because he I doubt that he has even ever really considered that seriously. So I never talked to him about it. But so I asked him, well, what about satellites? Don't you get information from satellites? And he said, oh, we get pictures. I'm like, that's all you get is pictures from satellites? They can see the top of the clouds, so you can see the weather from however many hundreds or thousands of miles away they are. So I don't know. That's just mind-boggling to me. So I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts about that.
No, it's definitely an issue. And even if you take, TJ, you said you've been playing with Google Earth a little bit, right? And it gives you that distance that you are above the Earth. And even if you go and put yourself at the 250 miles, which is where, that the ISS is said to be, it will, it'll shock you when you see what you're supposed to be seeing. And then if you take a look at, a lot of the Globers try and point you to the Felix Baumgartner video, which is complete nonsense. But when you see the curve that he's looking at, or the curvature that he's looking at, and he's supposed to be 128,000 feet, how is the curvature so much more than what the ISS sees when the ISS is at, here goes my lack of math knowledge, my guess would be 1.5 million feet. Is that way off? Anybody can do the math on that. But if they're 250 miles.
Yeah, right in the middle of the troposphere. All right, not
what's
the troposphere.
What's that?
Right in the middle of the thermosphere.
1, 2, 3. That's like 1.3 million miles.
Okay.
So you figure 1.3 million feet.
Right. So they're 10 times as high as Felix Baumgartner, but yet have a less curvature. So those are the things that we can look at and see that there's definitely problems. I, for one, have grown a deep hate for GoPro cameras. They just ruin reality. I was looking at some Mayan pyramids yesterday, and all these people that go there and visit all take their cameras, and they all are GoPro, and I think it ruins the experience. A lot of these people are climbing the pyramids and a lot of cool stuff, but you don't get a true feel for it because everything's spherical. That was my...
That was pretty good.
Thank you. So anyway, I do think it's definitely something that needs to be brought up. Let's see here. So TJ, anything else new you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll mention something. I was watching. I was almost calling the Gargoyle. Gosh, what is his name? Morgile? Is that it?
Yeah, Morgile.
Yes. Okay. So I was watching a video of him, and something clicked for me that people have said, but it just never clicked for me. And he was talking about the force that happens, and Jeran, you've talked a lot about this, and I've even asked people, and I'm still waiting for answers. Somewhere between Earth, the land, and space, there is either an instant or a gradual disconnect from the rotation of the Earth, where you just freely, you're in space and the Earth spins below. Now, he made a demonstration. He had an object like a pen or something tied to the end of the rope or string, and he was just spinning it around in circle, and just like, as long as you're connected to Earth when it spins, you're fine. But as soon as you disconnect and you're spinning, you get at that point. So he let go of the string, and this object just went flying. And he said, that's what happens as soon as you disconnect from the Earth spin, and Earth is spinning at however much speed when you're up so high that it would just thrust that object in space. And I was like, wow. So that finally made sense to me of the discussions that have been made and what people have been sharing about that disconnect between Earth, that at that point, and I think we may even, Bob, I think you may even said something about it a week or two ago with the rockets or whatever going up into space and going on an angle or whatever. But at some point, that disconnect between Earth and the gravity and the spin or whatever, but the object would be just thrusted uncontrollably in a certain direction.
Right.
So
I was going to say, what I said about that, TJ, was I was wondering, I was also questioning where that disconnect point is, and I don't suppose the Morgau mentioned that exactly what altitude that happens at. But what I was talking about in that context was that if we're spinning at 1,040 miles an hour at the equator, and then as you gradually go up towards the North Pole, you will actually be growing slower and slower and slower. And at some point, at some northern latitude and or southern latitude, theoretically, you would cross that supersonic barrier. The 600 miles an hour or wherever it is, where you actually go from subsonic to supersonic. And I was wondering where that was, because I was thinking, wow, that would have to be just crazy weather and unbelievable sonic booms all the time. So that's kind of what I was trying to figure out. But since I don't believe that happens in the first place, obviously that's not really going to be happening at any elevation whatsoever. But if we were on a globe Earth, you would have to ask yourself that question: where is that disconnect point? Where is that supersonic subsonic point? What latitude does it occur at? And I think we can safely say that it doesn't occur at any latitude. Therefore, that whole idea is just completely bunkum.
Yeah, I agree. And the reason I brought up that particular point was, if the Earth's atmosphere is connected to the Earth as it spins, if there was any point that wasn't, at that point of change, if it was at all a hard or static change, then our atmosphere would be ripped from the Earth and thrown out into space. Mm-hmm. For instance, what they want you to believe is, this is why I started the whole channel. This is why I've been harping on the thing that I've been harping on every day, is because they want you to believe in things that mentally you might be able to process and say, well, okay, I can see how that exists. But really, it's make-believe. What they're saying is that there's space, which is the absence of matter. It's space, it's out there. Then the Earth is spinning inside of this space, and it's as if we're allowed to spin with our atmosphere and move at crazy speeds and rotate the sun and all that stuff, but there is actually no real connected piece to space. Because if there were, then space would either have a little bit of the atmosphere that we have, or, for instance, what would happen when the shuttle leaves Earth and goes into space? Wouldn't that inject some of the air into space, which can't happen?
Yeah,
so
you would think.
It's when you really start to think about it, you really can't even process the ideas that they give you. And I've heard people tell me, oh, well, it gets gradually less and less and less and less. It's like, I understand that, but at one point, it changes over, which means there has to be no more atmosphere.
Yes.
So how does the area of no atmosphere touch the area of atmosphere and do no harm to it?
Right. There has to be a demarcation line up there somewhere.
Right.
To where the crossover point occurs.
Yeah.
And when I used to believe that the atmosphere went around with the Earth, I kind of theorized that, well, I guess the thing that's holding the atmosphere in and separating it from the vacuum was part of the electromagnetic field that surrounds the planet. I don't believe that anymore, but that was the only thing that I could even remotely come up with that would even try to explain, why the atmosphere just doesn't bleed off into the vacuum of space. Kind of like a Star Trek, shields up, Scotty, or what was it, Spaceballs, when they drained all the atmosphere out of planet Druidia.
Hey.
They had the great big Electromaid, or the Hoover, the maid with the vacuum cleaner. Just crazy stuff. But no, I obviously don't believe that is the way that it works anymore. And whatever is protecting us from whatever is up there, I tend to think that it's probably much more solid than we give it any credit for.
Yeah, exactly. I just think a lot of their little proofs are not actually proofs. Last night, I saw a Google Hangout request for Red's Rhetoric, and a bunch of his little buddies. And just to be funny, I went ahead and accepted it, and they all started going crazy. Jeranism's here, Jeranism's here. And I just said, let me just ask a question. And I showed I have eclipse footage that shows the shadow of the Earth coming down onto the light of the moon. You know, if we look up lunar eclipse, we'll see usually the shadow come from the left of the Earth and cover the moon. But there's footage that shows the shadow coming down, and it covers half the moon coming down, and the lit end is the bottom. And so I simply passed it on to Red and said, I need you to explain this. And of course they went straight to the attacks. What don't you understand about the moon, retard? It's like, explain this to me. He says, okay, well, I'll do it mathematically. I said, well, that's one of my points here, is that you can't just use real world language. You can't use real terms. You can't describe for me how that happens. You're going to use math to tell me how that happens? And he just went on and on about why I don't understand. But I basically left the conversation telling the other 6 guys that were in there, here is where I have no respect for you 6. Is you see what's going on here, is that I've asked a very simple question. Just explain to me how this can happen. And I've been attacked by being called names, being told I don't understand, but he cannot explain to me how is it possible for me to be standing on the Earth that is creating the shadow on the moon, yet I can see the light hitting the bottom of the moon. That's not how shadows work. That means the sun is behind me and below me, shining on the Earth, creating the shadow. It would not be possible for me to see the results.
Exactly.
So, you've seen that too, Bob?
Yep, absolutely. And I agree with you.
Send that one to me.
Yeah, and these are kind of,
to me.
yeah, these are kind of some of the points I'm looking into, where I'm trying to find things that they just can't explain away easily. Because I understand that many of the things they've already been given the answers to, and it's not surprising that they can just explain it quite simply. But it's also not reality, and I think that's... Whoa!
Hello.
Who's driving on the road? What is that?
Wait, you guys, are you driving?
I absolutely am not.
That's bad.
Somebody is, I don't know.
Is that you?
Must be Bob.
Are you driving?
No, I'm not.
I'm in my house.
Somebody's
Wait a second.
in the chat. Somebody's listening.
That's really kind of creepy, because there's only my wife and I sitting in our bedroom here, and there's Bob and there's TJ, and we just heard a truck. And okay.
Yeah, I'm sitting in my bedroom.
You know what
Hello,
it made
NSA.
me?
Oh.
I'm sitting in my office, and my office window was open, and a car may have driven by. Since I have the headphones on, I didn't really hear the car, so I'll bet you that's what it was.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. First, it's like, what's going on here? No, so just trying to find those little things that we can point out that I think will help prove what reality is, and that's. I actually have a video that'll probably be coming out this evening. I've been working on over the last couple of days, and really it discusses, what we choose as our reality really is what becomes truth. And what I saw happen, or what's clear to me what happened, is somehow someone got their version of truth into schools and got their version of truth taught at universities, and proved their version of truth mathematically, and instilled in people at a very young age to make fun of anyone who had a different idea. Mm-hmm. And so the result of that is now we are idiots for questioning truth. And unfortunately, truth is self-evident. So believe me, I would not question things if they were explained in a way that proved themselves to be truth to me. And one of the biggest signs for me is when I made the video, very first one, my wife and I thought, wow, that'd be cool if we got 100 views. And that's the honest truth, that we didn't even expect to get 100 people, but we just wanted to know, is there others that have this same feeling that reality is not what we see in front of us? Well, reality is what we see in front of us and not what we're taught. And immediately the responses started pouring in, and people emailing and saying, this is what I've been looking for, this is something I've never been able to say, this is something I've always felt. And that's when I felt we kind of hit that nail on the head, is that there is a bunch of people out there who have been forced to believe in, trust the reality that it was taught to us in schools and by our parents. And
they were scared to say anything.
Right, they were scared to ever bring it up, and I understand why, because so was I. You know, I was afraid to even make the video, just because I said I don't need to be told I'm crazy and sent to a nut house because I don't see the same reality they do. So what my video is kind of pointing out is it's really our job to change the world, and that's because the only way we can get them to ever change their version, it's not going to be just in Hangouts and YouTube videos. It actually is going to be a mass change of people's opinion towards the globe. It needs to get to the point where somebody talks about the globe and we all laugh, because it is funny. It's funny that that is believed, that it is trusted as truth when it's never been shown. It is a fantastical opinion. It's a make-believe, pretend.
It was like the there was this girl that commented on someone's comment. Someone had said something like, "Dude, globe, blah blah blah," and she goes, "Dude, the Earth's flat. Keep up with the times," or something. And I was like, "That's the kind of attitude we need to have." Totally.
Totally.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's gonna really take is confidence in what we're talking about, and that's what we're trying to instill, because I do think, even myself am guilty of it, that occasionally you get that feeling like, am I on the right track? And really it all comes back to looking at the evidence that's in front of you, and it's clear. You have to ignore what you were taught, and that's the hardest thing. And I mean, if you really look at it and say that we have a baby born, I don't know, somewhere that's disconnected from society, and have that child grow up to be 16, and even if you taught them math and reading and writing and all the different things except for the fact that you leave out the part of the globe, and then you try to explain to them at 16 or 18 years old where they live, that it's a spinning ball spinning 1,000 miles per hour, flying 66,000 miles per hour around the sun in this endless space, and that the stars that they see at night are quintillions of miles away. And if you tried to explain that to them, they would laugh in your face. There's no way it could be believed other than to teach it to children and put a globe in every kindergarten classroom. And everything that I remember, one of the very first things we're taught, right, is Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492 and discovered the New World, which proved the globe, which meant you didn't fall off the edge. And believe me, these things are taught for a reason. I mean, I did a video on Christopher Columbus, and if you just look into some of the papers that are still written about him, or that were written back then about him, from people that were on the voyages with him, of course they say most of his stuff was lost because, believe me, you don't want to read, I'm sure, the details of what he was doing. But other people were pointing out, and many people became priests that were with him because of the atrocities that they saw, which is just a complete disregard for life, murder, making a joke of people, keeping slaves, rape. And if those people who saw that reported it, and yet we have a holiday in the United States that celebrates this man, it's an atrocity. It is absolutely disgusting. And the only reason they celebrate him is because it's their little inside joke and version of the truth that says, oh, this man found the globe Earth.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about that, Jeran, is you know, I'm surprised that they still even teach that in school about Christopher Columbus discovering America, especially since the emergence of several maps that are much older that actually predate Columbus's journey to discover the Americas, where North America is very clearly shown in the maps. And it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. If it wasn't discovered yet, then why is it in those maps that predate Columbus? And you would think that the powers that be would say, oh, well, there's our proof. I guess somebody knew about it beforehand and take that out of the curriculum. But lo and behold, they're still teaching it in elementary schools because Jeran came home, my son, and was telling me about it. And it's like, no, that's not exactly true. And I explained to him why. But it's so weird. It's been proven wrong, and yet they persist with the myth.
Well, the reason why, in my opinion, is because simply they have to live in their make-believe history. It's the only way that their entire story makes sense. And that's why if we break down individual parts of it, what it does is opens people's minds to go look at the truth. And when you see the truth, then it leads you in a completely new path. And that's where you can discover that the entire history that we've been taught, and I don't mean entire, but I mean the path of history that they wanted to teach us, is at many points incorrect. And if you go on the new path, you'll see why they did it. Is because it doesn't, everything else doesn't work in the real world. It only works in their pretend land.
Right. Yep, I totally agree with that.
I'll bring up one point because I've actually gotten at least 20 emails from people who have said the exact same thing Bob did, and I guess they're asking me as a parent what I think is the best method for teaching our children because they're going to school. And as much as I'd like to say homeschool, I also know that that's not possible for 90% of families, and so I don't want to use that as an option. But here's what I would tell you, is even at the young age of kindergarten or first grade or second grade, whenever you feel your child understands what you're talking to them about, explain to them the purpose of school and say, school is meant to teach you something and make sure that you can retain that knowledge and then regurgitate it on a test. It in no way means it's the truth. They're giving you information. You're to read about it, understand the information, and then be able to repeat it during a test. That's where they should learn that from there, it's up to their minds to accept things as truth or not. The problem with me is, when I grew up, I wasn't told that. I was told school will teach you the truth. And so everything as I learned it, I put it into my brain as truth. And that has caused obviously a huge issue in my life and many others because it is very tough to deconstruct or take apart what your mind has already assembled as truth. And so if you teach your kids instead to take in the information and then make their own decisions, you know, for instance, I told somebody they're going to teach kids that gasoline makes cars run. Well, if people accept that as truth and move on, then how will the world ever get better? How will people invent and discover things? The truth of the matter is, yes, currently gasoline does make cars run, but does that mean that you know, water and vapor can't? No, it doesn't mean that it can't. I mean, no one's discovered that yet. So these are the kind of things that you want people to keep looking into, and you want kids who have a great mind, and if there's any mind that's more connected to creation and the creator, I've never seen it. You know, the kid that has got that free spirit that, you know, remember when we were kids and playing outside with no cares in the world and looking at the sky and truly loving life for what it should be loved about, you know, what should be loved about it before you get into the problems of bills and I need to raise my family and I need to get my job and I need to file my taxes. Then we have a disconnect from why we're here, and that is the whole point of everything that they do. The history they teach us. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of gives you an idea where cognitive dissonance comes from, because we are taught so many truths or so many quote unquote facts that really aren't facts, and we are supposed to accept them as truths as children. And as we go through life, we have a hard time reconciling a lot of this stuff. You know, for example, like you were saying, well, if we teach kids, well, gas runs car, then how is anybody ever going to get the idea that, well, maybe propane can too, kerosene, whatever, multiple different types of fuels. If you're just told one thing and said that's it, regurgitate that, but not to open your mind and consider other possibilities, then your mind is going to subconsciously start to get stuck on certain things. And it can actually manifest into sickness, into illness, because your mind subconsciously cannot reconcile many of the things that you've been told as and have been represented as fact. So it causes cognitive dissonance. It causes a variety of mental illnesses, and I believe is probably at the root of a lot of depression today, because people simply, they feel like they're trapped. They've been taught this set of rules about how life works, and that we have no ability to change things, because who are we? We're just one person against the whole world and the whole system, and therefore, we feel like everything is irreconcilable, and we're a victim to everything. And the reality is that it's the opposite of that that's actually true. We have more control than we could ever possibly imagine, but that control and that knowledge is bred right out of us through the indoctrination systems of the schools.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think an exciting thing that we might be doing, hopefully next week, I'm really hoping, is someone had emailed me and gave me information to contact this Christian man who debates people. He's kind of like a Ray Comfort. I can't think of his name right now. So I did contact him, and we're trying to get him on a show. And he thinks that we're just very confused about Christianity and wants to set us straight and allow Bob and I and TJ and Missa to ask him questions. And I think that that's really important, because I don't know if you saw this, Bob, but you know who Dave Johnson is, right?
I might. I'm not sure.
He makes some flat earth videos and has always been a positive commenter on my YouTube channel.
Oh,
and
okay.
Because of last week's show, I am now the Antichrist. So how quickly things change.
Yeah, I had a feeling we were gonna kind of catch some flack for that last week, but you know what?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I'm not going to back down from things because others don't feel the same, because I understand just what we've been talking about the indoctrination of schools, teaching you things are the way one thing and not the way you see them. Well, remember that Christianity throws in a little extra spice in the fact that they tell you, and remember I grew up Catholic, Missa grew up Christian, TJ knows this as well, that it's taught at a very young age that this is the truth, this book is the truth. Anything that comes from outside of this book is the devil working through his various methods to try and trick you away from the book. And anything that is said outside of the book is simply a trick. So now you've got, at least school doesn't do that. They just tell you anybody coming from outside of it is stupid. They do not tell you anybody who comes with anything other than the globe Earth is the devil and is trying to switch you from the globe so that you spend your life in burning flames instead of in paradise. And that's what Christianity does. And that, to me, is the biggest issue. I've had so many Christians email me trying to tell me, you only have a couple months, man, to accept Jesus before you spend your life in hell. And it doesn't matter.
They're all like the water boy's mom. You're the devil.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter that I tell them, look, the reason I continue doing these videos is the amount of people who wrote me and said, look, I was an atheist until I started watching some of your videos, and it helped me reconnect with the infinite, with the divine. And I thought that was so important, because that's really what is at the center of everything I do.
And I think it's important for people like you and me and TJ who grew up in religion and have come out of it and like seen the other side. I think it's important for people like that to kind of, I hate the word testimony because my sister always uses it and I'm not a big fan of it, but telling your story so then other people can like, they can see where we're coming from and know that it's a real thing that's happening to people who grew up religious and not just a theory we have. So I think it's important to put your story out there so other people can see.
I mean, in just the story again, and I'll bring this up again, in just the story of God speaking to Abraham and telling him, I will make a pact with your people. We will make a covenant with your people. That is called racism. It's segregation. What God is doing is basically saying, I like these people and not these other people. That is not morally correct. And then he says, and a sign of this agreement will be the circumcision of males. So now God is for the mutilation of the human body. And then on top of that, he basically says, I will help you destroy these oppressors. So now he's okay with murder. And this is throughout the Old Testament. And in my opinion, like I've said before, the Bible is simply a history of man. It is very clear to me that if you read the book, you can see the development of the human mind. It is people's ideas of God. So yes, is there truth in there? Absolutely, because people were inspired possibly by that divine spark and wrote great things. But they also had things happen in their life that they couldn't explain, and so they attributed that to God, and that's why God becomes very human, being vindictive, being angry, being jealous, but at the same time loving, kind, caring, forgiving, yet he'll send you to hell. So when you start looking at these things, it's really self-evident that it's kind of a history of mankind. Then Jesus comes, and Jesus, did he promote the things of the Old Testament? Not so much. He changed things by saying, no, God is inside of us. To get to the Father, go through me. And he's saying these things in a way to turn people away from that jealous, vindictive, angry God into a more personal God. So I almost think, I was telling Missa this last night, that there needs to be the updated Testament. If people still want to read this book, then you need to add a third section, which is now we no longer need a Savior. That is something that was told to ancient people, that we needed to be forgiven for our sins, and Jesus died on the cross for us. In my opinion, those things are stories that without them we wouldn't be here, and that's why I'm not at all a fan of, Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and these people, because I don't think they saw the stories for what they are, and they attack them and break them down as if this is causing the crumbling of humanity. And I'm not sure humanity would be here if it wasn't for the Bible, if it wasn't for the stories that people were told to keep in line. Now, obviously, there's so many wrongs in the book, being that the governments took it over and it's now used for control. But we're smart enough to be able to take the goods, move forward, and leave the bad behind. The fact that Christians are out there trying to block gay marriage is an atrocity. And the fact that they're trying to treat them as lessers, and you've got this Westfield Baptist people standing with signs that say God hates gays and gays will burn in hell. How do they feel like that is like they're going to get to heaven and God's going to give them a high five? All right, you hated on gays? High five. I hated them too. They're going to burn in hell. That's not reality. It's not what's going to happen. It's not the end-all be-all. And at the same time, these Christians feel like, do you really think the answer is accept this book, accept Jesus as your Savior, and that's the path to heaven? That's it. They say, it's based on faith, not works. You really think that? You really think the end of your life will be you facing the Creator and Him asking, did you accept my human son as your Lord and God and Savior? And that's going to be your ticket to heaven or hell. It's an absolute atrocity, and you can tell me that I don't understand Christianity, and you can tell me that I'm wrong about that. You can call me the Antichrist if you want. I'm bringing people to the infinite, that divine spark, which should change the earth for the better. And what's wrong with that? Everything else that's out there is trying to make people feel insignificant, and it doesn't matter that there's a Creator or not, because look how they treat us, and look, it's just not right.
I think that a big part of the reason why Christians still are believing in it is because mostly of the fear of what it would mean if they didn't believe in it. Like, they would go to hell, or they're afraid of hell, so they're like, I'd rather choose, not so much they're stating that, but they feel like, oh my gosh, I'll go to hell if I don't believe in Jesus. That's what I'm taught, so I'm going to believe in Jesus. Like, they're so afraid of hell, and I think it's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, they think anything coming from outside of that, meaning me. I am now saying something other than the book says. So they immediately say, oh, that's the devil. He's working through Jeran now to get his information across. And I was having this back and forth email with this lady, and she just does not see my point when she says, Jeran, the devil works in many ways, and he's working through you to get his information of the Bible being wrong to people. And I told her, I said, the devil is a being to you? He's an actual being? And she said, yes, the devil is very smart and crafty, and his whole goal is to foil God's plan. And I said, is the Bible true then in your mind? She said, yes, it is God's divine word. And I said, so the book says that Satan loses. And I said, so now you're saying Satan is so smart that he can work through me to get his information out there, and he can fool all these people, but he's not smart enough to realize that in the end he loses? He can't read the book that you can read? And they get very confused. And, well, no, I think that he's trying to change the end of the book. And it's asinine that these people, and I say, why is God allowing Satan to go around fooling people? It's absolutely a joke. And people are smarter than that. They're smart enough to take from the book the good things. They always say, oh, you don't, Jesus said great. Yeah, take great things from Jesus. I think that the best rule I've ever heard to live my life is the golden rule.
Yep,
I absolutely, too. Yeah. And
do
so
unto others as you would have them do unto you. And there's
right.
no other rule necessary.
Exactly. And Jesus said that. And actually, Jesus said there was 2 rules, right? Number 1, love God with all your heart. Number 2, treat others as you want to be treated. And I think that those 2 are the most important. And so I don't, from that, then say, oh, well, Jesus said something true, therefore he died on the cross for me, and I owe him my devotion. And that's not the way I look at it. As I look at it, is Jesus was a very intelligent human being, if he existed, and was very ahead of his time, and spoke truths and helped change the world. Fantastic. That's great. But the things that were used from his life and turned into a different world and a different idea and a book that you have to follow. I mean, just go to Google Earth and spend a half hour looking at the area around the Vatican. Look at the statues of naked men, of naked boys, of demons, it is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And yeah, I get told all the time by Christians, well, that's Catholic, and you have to understand that that's way different than Christianity. It's like, okay, great. So in a Christian church now, they've got rock music, and they've got celebrations, and they talk about Jesus and these things. That's great. If they want to talk about those things, I have no problem. But when you tell people that's the only truth, that's it, that you must give your life to Jesus, accept him as God, and that's it, and move on. And also, by the way, give me your 10% so that I can recruit more people and make more money. That's a problem. That's not what I see as okay. And so this is where I'm excited about talking to this gentleman. I'm not sure if it'll be next week or the week after that we'll be able to get him on the show. But I think it'll be good with Bob and I and Missa and TJ being able to ask him some questions. I think it'll be good for everyone to hear that there is some things that they just can't explain. What do you guys think? You looking forward to that conversation at all?
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting conversation. We'll have to kind of slot it out just for that. I know a lot of people are kind of against hearing religious conversation, and I don't blame them, in some ways, because it can get a little bit old. But I think that there's some very interesting things that come out of it. But I don't know. I just I'll kind of go with it when it comes along. So also, Jeran, I was looking at this Ashley Webster video, and I noticed that you left a comment in there about adding salt to the water. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was interesting because we were talking about electrostatic influences on water, and how we were talking a few weeks ago about how it will actually statically drag the water around. It will kind of pull it up, not misform it, but just kind of pull it up and pull the tides back. And one of the experiments that they do in this is, they talk about, they do this experiment on fresh water, and then they add salt to it, and you can see the dramatic difference in how much more effective the electrostatic and electromagnetic influences on the water when they put the salt in it. And that just made me think, of course, of the oceans and why the oceans have the waves, and really the larger freshwater lakes don't have that effect happen to them. So just another fantastic thing, I think, in this video. And is that you that's got the background noise going on, Jeran, or is that TJ?
What background noise is that?
I don't know. I just heard a bunch of doors opening and closing. It sounded.
Oh
like
yeah, Yeah, I walked out of the room and I just walked back in.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's really loud.
Don't ever do that again.
Yeah, don't ever do that again.
No, totally, and I think there's some there are great ideas in there that I think she speaks great about. And watching, that's the video with the blue liquid, right, on the magnetic base.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I love that video.
Absolutely, and part 2 is even better because you know what I was talking to you about when I called you up, or I was texting you a couple weeks ago, and I was so excited about the magnetics
Right.
that we had found, you know, and how it seemed to tie into everything. And when I started looking at crop circles, that was another thing that came up over and over and over again. And it seems like there's so many of those depictions that indicate flat Earth. And then, of course, you sent your response back with that question of how come the crop circles have gotten so much better over the last few years versus where they were in the 70s. You know, I never thought about that, but that is a really good question because if that was some sort of extraterrestrial influence, you would have think that their technology wouldn't have changed that much, which is interesting. However, when you do research into crop circles, you also find that they go back several hundred years. I mean, this is not a phenomenon that kind of came out of the 20th century. It's been going back for centuries and centuries where they have actually documented them. In fact, a lot of them said that a lot of the belief was that the devil was actually making those crop rings. Kind of interesting.
This technology is getting better.
Yeah, pretty funny stuff. But yeah, it's like.
Well, I think with that channel you sent me or that website really helped me see that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and one of the things I love when my attitude changes is I now think that people that make crop circles know something they don't know how to get out, and that's the difference. Is that before I thought possibly they're extraterrestrial or possibly they're this or that, but when you sent me that website and then I went to the archive button and it lists I think 1970 through 2015, my thought process is I just want to start at the oldest ones. And so when I went to 1970 and saw 2 circles that were very poorly made, and then went to 71, about the same, 72, a little better, and I kind of said, hold on a second, 75, 80, 85, 90, and noticed that with time, the crop circles are getting much more intricate, much more detailed, much more impressive, and so it was very easy for me to see that, okay, people are trying to convey information or secrets or, for instance, and I just am saying this as an example, but maybe there's some people that are inside NASA that can't say things. They know that no matter how they put out the information, it will come back to them and they will be killed or handled in a way that they don't want to be handled. And so possibly these people are getting together and saying, well, look at this drawing and let's put this into a field to where it cannot be connected back to us, but people can learn truth through it. Even if you post something on the internet, it can be found out where it came from. Even if a random book or a random note were to get out, it could always be traced back. But something like a crop circle probably cannot.
My mom used to call that a cry for help. When someone, you could see it in their eyes, she used to say, like, it's a cry for help. They can't say anything, but you can see it in their eyes.
As far as the crop circles, that's what she was talking about, Missa?
Oh, I don't know. In terms of people who are in NASA or even in like a cult or something, that they can't speak about it, so I don't know. My mom used to say, like, in terms of people who weren't Christian, she said she could see it in their eyes that they were like a cry for help.
That's interesting. Yeah, what's interesting about that is I followed crop circles for years and years and years, and it never even occurred to me about what you were saying, about the crop circles getting better. But still, I mean, there's a definite criteria for what would qualify as a legitimate, real deal crop circle, and one that's just patently fake and was made with boards and ropes and stomping down the crops. One of the hallmarks of a quote unquote real crop circle is that these stalks will be bent over, and interestingly enough, they will have at the node points of the wheat stalks or whatever field that they're in. They seem to grow really large at these elbow node points, and then they kind of explode. And when the crop is laid down, they kind of interweave into each other. Now that's something that you simply, I mean, it would be hard enough to do just with a board, but how they get the stalks to actually, you know, lay down, bend over without ever actually breaking, and then interweave with each other is phenomenal. And there's also a microwave like trace. There's a little bit of a radiation trace from some sort of a microwave type signal. So, I mean, you would think that whatever is making these things obviously can be done from the air, because there's never any paths into the crops. It's always pristine around these things. And a lot of times, you know, because most of them occur in England, I mean, there's so much rain there, there can be just tons of water and mud and all kinds of stuff. And these fields, when these crop circles are made, are absolutely pristine. So I've always been, you know, kind of marveled at it, going, what in the world is doing this, that is able to lay these things down like this and then weave them so precisely, and especially at the scale that some of them are at. I mean, some of the scales of them are, you know, come close to 1,000 feet across. And
Bob, did you see the one crop circle that popped up in Salinas in December of 2013?
Well, that wasn't the microchip one, was it?
Yeah, it totally was.
Yeah, that was, you know, what was weird about that was supposedly NVIDIA said that they were doing that
right
as a promotion for their new processor, because there was some similarity to that. And I saw that,
mm-hmm.
and it wound up that some people wound up coming up missing from NVIDIA, and all kinds of crazy stuff went on over that. But
so
yeah.
Then if NVIDIA did it, then how would they do that?
They didn't. They didn't. They claimed
right.
that they did it, but they could never back up anything that they said about it.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a big load, you know, a big cover-up for something, because I think that it actually meant something. And if you look at some of the research that people have done,
yeah, I did a little bit myself, like on supposedly the dots were like Braille, and they turned out to be like numbers like 192 or something.
Yeah, which was like NVIDIA's new chip number or something like that.
Yeah, so weird.
Yeah, I think it was just a coincidence, and NVIDIA just kind of stepped in and said, oh, yeah, that was ours, we did that.
A perfect time to promote your new thing.
Precisely, but I mean, it didn't even, when you looked at schematically, when you looked at their processor, their GPU was what it was. They were claiming that it was their new GPU. But when you look at them schematically, it wasn't the same device. So it's just like, okay, so why would you misrepresent your device in a crop circle? And of course, they never really had any good answer for that.
Yeah, it's so weird. And I saw a few people. It was like right after it happened, I was looking into it because I was curious about it, and I'm always trying to decode stuff. But there was like someone that said there was those circles that were sort of in almost like a clockwork type of thing, but also representative like of the solar system or something. And then that one thing that was coming in that looked like a comet or something. So there's a bunch of different opinions about it, but I never came to a conclusion on my own because there's just so many different things that people were saying about it. So
yeah, everybody seems to have a different take on it, that's for sure. And, you know, anything, of course, you know, I'm looking at that has to do with like a wheel pattern or, you know, some type of circular pattern, especially with any type of sacred geometry in it, I'm all over it. You guys may have noticed I changed my logo from the from the one that it was that showed the triangle. Everybody was telling me, oh, it's so Freemasonic, you know, you must be the devil and all this stuff. And that was ridiculous, because actually my old logo, I had designed that nearly 15 years ago for my engineering company. And so I decided, you know, since we're doing all these workups, these graphic workups for this new model, that I would change it to this new logo, which basically shows the flat Earth, and then it has the flower of life kind of superimposed over it. And I don't see it in the chat, but outside of that is like a compass 360-degree grid around it. And what the flower of life that's superimposed over the Earth actually is showing is it shows not only the magnetic fields that are above the Earth and that run resident as the ley lines in the Earth, but this is also the magnetic grid foundation that the sun and the moon travel around on. And I don't think I've told you this yet, Jeran, but we're kind of toying with the idea, but if you look very closely at the flower of life, especially around the equatorial region, you can see kind of more of kind of a hexagonal type pattern. And so we're kind of toying with the idea that the sun may very well travel like in straight lines and then make a slight angle change and then travel again in another direction and make a slight angle change. I'm not sure it's entirely a completely and true circular path above the Earth. Well, I mean, we know it isn't because it's vortexing in and out. But I think that there may actually be some hard cuts in this, and that may be the answer to some of the other problems that we're seeing in the flat Earth model.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's really, and of course, Cami did all of this, and you know, we're slowly but surely, now that we're back from Hawaii, we're back to work on it because I really want to get this model out there. But I'll tell you, with what Rich just released, Thrive and Survive, you know, about the Coriolis effect, that combined with this model that we're developing, it's going to be pretty astounding, I think, if we can just come to terms on what is going on with the eclipses, and also what degree, if any, of the moon phases are reflected sunlight. And the more I look at this, Cami is still convinced that it is sun reflection. I am not of that school of thought anymore. I still think it has something to do with the phases as it passes around the outside magnetic fields of the circle of life, and that's what's causing the moon phases to light up in that certain way. So even in this house, we're kind of at odds as to, you know, what's going on there, and that seems to be the big point of contention. I know it is between your model, Jeran, and the one Cami's looking at, the one I'm looking at. We for some reason do not seem to be able to find any common ground on that, but I'm hopeful.
I think opposition is key, especially if you're able to work through the opposition. It's key to have opposing views in your own household, I think, as long as you're open-minded.
Because that's what science is.
Aww.
That's right, because that's what science is. You're absolutely right. So, I mean, Cami and I talk about it constantly, and I'm sure you guys too. But it's like there's so many possibilities for the eclipse model that it's just, it boggles the mind, and that's why, you know, we're sitting here furiously trying to model it in 3D. But the more I think about it, I'm beginning to think that no, the moon is indeed self-lit. It is its own light, and I believe that the phases that it goes through has a lot to do with that little flower of life pattern over my logo there. As it traverses around in a circle, it interacts with those magnetic patterns, and that's actually what's causing the phases as they show up in the moon. That's my belief, and you know, I'm working to try and prove that. And of course, Cami's working very hard to try and prove me wrong. So we'll see what happens, right?
That's awesome.
All right, so I do have a couple questions here. So guys, everybody who's in the chat, if you do have a question, just type in capital letters question, colon, and then put what you want us to answer, and we will jump into those.
Okay, and also somebody just says, please don't bring the flower of life nonsense to the flat Earth. I got news for you, smiley face. The flower of life is very, very applicable to the flat Earth. In fact, anybody that has even studied orbital patterns. Go ahead, Jeran.
I was just going to say that all you have to do is just take the ley lines and move them to Cartesian to polar.
Precisely, and not only that, if you looked at some of this fantastic sacred geometry that a lot of people are doing on Facebook and showing like the orbital patterns of Venus, orbital patterns of Mars, you know, orbital pattern of Earth, when you plot those out over a year, they turn into these beautiful flower of life sacred geometry orbital patterns. So to say that it has no business in the flat Earth model is patently absurd, because it has every business in the flat Earth model, especially when you're dealing with magnetic effects. So sacred geometry, you know, the Masons are key on all the sacred geometry for a reason. They worship these numbers for a reason. And I think that, you know, if there are variables that we don't really know what they are, for example, you know, we've heard the argument that the sun is 3,000 miles away to 3,400 miles away. Well, how about maybe we say the sun is 3,300 miles away because it's a Masonic number, and maybe the diameter of it is 33 miles also, and just start working with models, you know, assuming those Masonic numbers. Because obviously the Masons are never going to tell us. So if we start taking these sacred numbers that the Masons seem to worship, and we start applying these to our models, I think we're a lot more likely to come up with an answer that is viable much more quickly than if we're just kind of pulling numbers out of our butt, you know?
All right, so I got some questions here. First from Christopher Hitchslap. You can stop typing your questions now over and over again. Question was first whether or not, or why am I scared of debate? Second one, why do I only have guests on that agree with me? And if I'm not mistaken, I just did say that we were going to have some Christian on, I thought, in 2 weeks. And these are not guests, they're co-hosts. So the co-hosts agree with me because we were all taught exactly what you believe. There is no need to have the Globe Earth show where we all get on and discuss the globe Earth, because we all learn that in school. And these are some things I've been trying to tell people who repeatedly try and come to the Jeranism chat and talk about the globe Earth, is that that's not the point of the chat. The chat was made for people who are starting to see things the way we see them, to come and discuss and compare models and show links and pictures. And we do not need someone who pops in and says, Coriolis effect, what about the Foucault pendulum? Because these are things that if you believe in the flat Earth, you've already looked into. You've already seen, as Thrive and Survive shows, that there is a huge problem with the Coriolis effect. And as I've told people many times, if you go to Wikipedia and just look up Coriolis effect, look up mathematics, look up gravity, and read them top to bottom, you will see the deception that is in this world. It's very simple to see that mathematics cannot explain reality, first of all. Second of all, when you describe a force like the Coriolis effect, mixing it in and out of when it's fictitious, that it's basically an added force to explain something we see that must be true because we certainly spin, but we don't spin. So these are the things that people ask, why don't I debate? Because I don't need to get up in a debate forum and hear people give me mathematical proof that we're on a sphere, because it does not mean that we're on a sphere. Not when my reality shows me clearly differences. When Missa and I prove that there's no curvature in 4 miles, which there should have been 10 feet, that these things are clear to us. We can see from Monterey, without taking a picture, without showing you, we can see the Santa Cruz beach. That is 32 miles away. It is absolutely impossible. Yes, I understand, to show you that, I'm going to have to figure out a way to do it at a certain point where the light can be seen and that we prove, and we're trying to do those things, but they need to be better organized than I was doing it before. It's not as easy as we just go out there with my wife on one side and me on the other when we can't. We're trying to live stream. We each only have one phone. We can't communicate and also live stream. So these are the reasons somebody else asked, when are you going to get to your experiments? We're getting to them. We just need better planning. And the thing is, you can do the experiments.
The point of our theories is that you can go and do them yourselves. You don't have to wait for us to come out and do them. Like, we're not saying wait for our experiments because you can't do them. No, it's
that's right. And also, exactly, Miss. And also, you know, one other thing I wanted to say about this is we do not always agree with each other's viewpoints. In fact, I just mentioned 5 minutes ago that Jeran and I and my wife Cammie all have very different ideas and models of how the eclipses work. And it is something that we have tried and we've talked, but we cannot seem to come to any common ground on this yet. So does that mean that any one of us is wrong or right? No, well, maybe, but until we can actually come on something that works for all of us, I think you know, we're not going to be on the same page of that. And I'm sure there are going to be other things that we're not on the same page on either. Granted, Jeran and I do see a lot of things the same way, and so does TJ. But you know, we're here to try and talk about something that we believe in common. And yes, there will be a time when we have, you know, dissenters on here, I'm sure, at some point where, you know, they want to come on and teach us about religion or teach us about, you know, why the ball Earth is right. But you know, until that happens, we are basically just trying to convey what we have learned in our investigations. And you know, we all come from very different backgrounds, and we have all investigated very different things, and we all came onto this flat Earth model from very different angles. So to automatically assume that we're all going to agree about everything is ludicrous,
No.
because that's
And
not the way it's
the only
working.
thing we agree on is that it's clearly not a spinning ball in endless space, and that's why we're looking for what could it be.
Alternatives. Yeah.
And this, somebody asked here, Jeran, why do you hate mathematics so much? And it's like, well, if you're going to make assumptions and just say things, then it just shows me you're not listening to anything I say. I love math. I think math is awesome. But what I'm saying is, just because you can put an equation on paper does not equal reality. And how many times do I need to say that I had a teacher that said he could create an equation that said an elephant can hang by its trunk holding onto a blade of grass from a cliff and prove it to be true. Now, once he put that equation and tried to submit it anywhere, someone would simply show that it's not true. That if I created a mathematical equation that showed an orb rotated my house, you would be able to come here and test it and say, no, there is no orb rotating your house, Jeran, you're lying. Well, the difference is NASA and your little miracle workers, Copernicus and Galileo, created a model, gave it mathematics to back it up and prove it, and I am certainly not saying that the math of the globe is wrong. I am saying it's not reality. It's fantastic. You want to believe in it? Believe in it. Enjoy yourself. I would rather believe in truth. And the problem with the whole thing is it's being taught in schools. It is a religion. It's what you worship. The same person said, Jeran, how will you ever learn anything new? And these are the kind of things I'm talking about. Do you not realize what you just said? You believe in the globe Earth that we were all taught. So we are here trying to present a different side of the story, different alternatives. And you're saying, by us talking about these different alternatives, how will we ever learn anything new? Everything that we're saying is new. So I don't understand what you mean.
Exactly. Math is a tool. It is a tool, not a religion. It is a tool to verify and add credibility to a model or to calculate an expected outcome. But to just, say point blank, oh, well, we hate math because, everybody tries to define the globe in terms of this math is ridiculous, even though it is true that that's what everybody says. Oh, I'm going to show you the math of how this is possible. But it's just like you were saying when you were in the Reds Rhetoric chat group. It's like, can you just give me an answer without having to go into all the equations that may or may not even be applicable? And that's the problem that I think Jeran has with math. That's certainly a problem that I have with math. And I love math. I'm an engineer. I work with math a lot. It was one of my favorite subjects always in school. But math can be used as either a tool or it can be used as an instrument of deceit also. NASA happens to use it as an instrument of deceit and not a tool.
Yeah, it's just if your wife came home and you thought that she cheated on you and she said she didn't, you said, well, prove that you didn't, and she said, okay, here's the mathematic equation that shows that I did. I mean, these things don't work in reality. They can't be used for some things. And one of them being, well, now imagine this too, that the mathematics work as long as you count certain things as infinity. For instance, that's how the whole globe model came to be, is because when they tried to measure stellar parallax back in the insert time period here, 1600s, 1500s, they just eventually said, well, they're infinitely far, the stars. So then they were able to plug numbers in and get equations that they wanted. Now, when it came time that some people found some stellar parallax, they just simply came up with new numbers that are so incredibly huge. And if you've watched my videos, you've seen me try to explain how actual far are some of these stupid galaxies. And also, if you just look at the stars themselves that are part of constellations, they'll say they're 370 light years away, plus or minus 60. How is that fact? How are you going to go around teaching in schools that the globe is a fact, yet the stars in the sky are, they're like 200 light years away, plus or minus 45? That is nonsense. If you ask me how far, Jeran, is it from where you live to Hawaii, and I said, it's like 2,400 miles, plus or minus 700. I mean, I'm basically telling you, it could be 1,500 to 3,500 miles. That's ridiculous. It's not. And if I was saying that and then telling you, but everything I tell you is fact, there's a problem. And these are the problems that we've noted that you people will not open your minds to accepting. that there is a huge problem that we have accepted as fact, this globe model, when it's fantastically impossible. And these are things you just need to understand, the fact that people are not upside down on the bottom of this spinning ball. They're just not. And you explain it away with, well, to each person's perspective, they're standing upright. Okay, well, great, then they're all standing upright, which means the Earth is flat. So it is simply a matter of what you want to believe. If you want to allow people to take reality and spin it into a ball so that it makes more sense for you, with rather than saying we're all weighed down, you say we're all weighed by being pulled to the center of a ball, fantastic. Enjoy that. But then think about the fact that as people are flying in a plane, one person from Alaska to, say, Chile, and another person from Australia to Russia, that those planes are, one of them is upside down. As they're flying, they have to go from right side up to upside down. And it was, oh, well, they're all the same perspective. Well, then both planes are right side up, meaning the Earth is flat. So these are things that you just can look at simply and come up with your own conclusion. And if it was a matter of, well, everything else makes sense, then I would say, okay, well, I would start to believe in the globe. But no matter what you look at, be it the spinning, how can we be spinning on a ball if no human being has ever felt it at all? Ever. There's never been a little hiccup in our spin that caused a building to fall. There's never been anything that's caused the winds to get crazy. Again, the atmosphere is attached to the Earth, spinning at the same speed the Earth is, which, remember, that means that the atmosphere at the equator is spinning 1,000 miles per hour, but the atmosphere in Alaska is spinning 100 miles per hour.
I remember in that video you made with the and watch the cart as the things move, or whatever, that 1960s video, they straight up said there's no experiment that you could do on Earth that could prove or disprove that we're spinning. They straight up say that in their videos. Crazy.
Yeah. It's all a perspective thing, and these are things that if you went back and looked at what Einstein said and actually read what he wrote, you will see it's not at all what you're told Einstein said and what you're told Einstein wrote. It's very easy for people to change your opinions on things by simply saying, well, Einstein stated this and Einstein stated that. And if you actually go back and look at his paperwork, he clearly pointed out numerous times the issue with mathematics and what we could expect if we started accepting axioms that are not true. And an axiom is basically a starting point, like as if you start everything by saying we're on a spinning ball. Well, guess what? You're going to be able to prove a lot from that because you started with an axiom that's not true. And so what we're trying to do is just give people an alternative view. And yeah, I have no way to prove to you that we're on a flat Earth any better than the people can prove to me that we're on a globe.
Actually, I think we have a lot better ways to prove.
Yeah, well, we have, but by using, what I mean is I can't prove it mathematically yet because it's going to take time to draw up a mathematic system. If that's what you need is math, well, sorry, I use reality.
Yes, and we are trying to make a mathematical model for this, but you have to remember that this is something that has got to come from a kind of a grassroots effort, because we're certainly not going to get any help from NASA engineers.
No, and nor can we start with the axioms of the Earth is a ball, or that the sun is X amount of way, and that the planets are X distance away. If we're not starting from that point, so it's not as easy as you think, just show me the proof. Well, then we're going to have to start from square one, and somebody unfortunately spent 400 years dealing with pretend land, and so people don't have the information readily available that will help us draw a real conclusion to the real world problem.
We don't want help from liars from NASA anyways, do we?
No, that's absolutely not what we need. So anyway, those things are frustrating. Somebody else asked, how do you know the Bible is fake? I believe there are good people and bad people everywhere. If you don't understand the people of the time, it is unfair for you to judge God. Now listen, that's from Cheryl Lynn 927, because these are the things I think people say, and I don't know if they even realize what they're typing. If it's unfair for you to judge God, why do you then take the book written by people explaining God as truth? Do you take it for any other reason besides the fact that the book says it is truth? Has God came to you and told you that the book is truth?
Yeah, and again, you also have to define fake. What what does that mean, the context of fake as you're using it? Because I believe that the way that religion uses the Bible is completely wrong, absolutely 100% corrupt, incorrect. It's being used as a control mechanism in that context. However, as I said before, when you read the Bible with eyes to see or understand the allegory that it's written in, there is a wealth of information in the Bible. But that just because I can make that statement and say there is an incredible amount of very valuable information in the Bible, that certainly does not mean that I'm going to be saying, hey, Jesus, come on over, you're my man from now on. Jesus Christ is my, well, I won't say that, but, but it's just, you have to read it with the proper eyes. You have to understand the allegory that it is written in and the metaphor behind it. There are parts of it that are very literal. I believe that the creation account, when it's talking about the construction of the earth, is very literal about the firmaments being separated and how the earth is here. I think, in my model, that fits in absolutely perfectly with what I'm looking at, for a flat earth model. Now, it may vary a little bit from what Jeran's looking at or maybe what Eric Dubé is looking at, but I personally think that Scripture has a lot to contribute to the flat earth model. However, when it gets to the parts of how I should be conducting my life, who I have to believe in, how I have to act, that is contrary to my own beliefs and what I feel about how I should treat other people. I'm just not going to go there with it, because I look at it then as nothing more than a control mechanism that is made to manipulate the minds of the people that it affects. It's as simple as that. But
Absolutely.
To say that it's worthless and a fake, no way is it fake.
And I've never said that. In fact, I point out numerous times that I actually think it's the greatest book ever written, and I enjoy reading it, but I also am a little bit scared of the Bible simply because the people who take it literally, that scares the crap out of me. Because I think that there's a bunch of Christians in this world that don't care if World War III starts, because they think Jesus is going to appear out of the clouds and save them. And so they just sit back and do nothing. And how do you think that is okay? It is our job to protect this world. I do not think I need a savior, because I think I need to save myself. I cannot just sit here and say, well, I trust in Jesus, therefore I'm going to heaven, therefore let the world rot. And I have a big feeling that that's what's happened to our world, is that people are complacent, people are just accepting. If you look at what's happening in the United States, it just seems like they're just going to keep letting people get away with this, letting our representatives bomb whatever countries they want, and they just feel, well, I accept Jesus, that's all that I have to do as a Christian to go to heaven. So that's a problem.
Yeah, it reminds me of that song. I don't know if you've ever heard the song, but it's called One Tin Soldier. You ever heard that song? It's by a group called Coven years ago, and one of the main lines in it says, "Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. Do it in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end." And it's like, and that's exactly the state of mind that bothers me about Christianity. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter what we do now, as long as we accept Christ. Everything's going to be cool. We don't have to be responsible for anything, because Jesus already died for us, so we're golden. It's like bull BS. I don't buy that for a second.
Not at all. And that's not, if that's the world I live in, then that's why I tell people, then I don't worship that God. And that is my choice. If I was given free will, then it's my choice to choose whether I follow or don't follow a particular God. And the God that is described in the Bible, I think, is a human representation of God that I don't particularly enjoy or like or subscribe to or approve of or would worship. Sorry, that's not my idea of morality. And then when I look at things and I say, okay, so if I'm created and I believe that I am a product of the creation, then I must be less moral than the God who created me. And I am more moral than that. If I could stop a rape, I would. If I could stop a murder, I would. Yet your God does not. Now, my God doesn't do it because he is everything that there is. He is every bit of creation. It is, because I don't even say he, the creator is everything, meaning the one being raped, the one doing the raping. So these are why things are that happen. And also, in my world, the creator allows free will, meaning everything that anybody wants to do is allowed. So there is no way that those things can change. God's not going to protect a kid who runs out in front of a car because the kid chose to do that, and the person driving the car chose to drive down the road going 45 miles per hour in a 25 zone. Those are decisions that are made that have real-world implications and have real-world results. And so that's the world that I ascribe to, not this pretend land that is written in this book. It's just not the way things work. So, but I certainly would not say that the Bible is fake. You know, these are things that I just wouldn't say. I think that true and false are more subjective than people take them for. Or the Ten Commandments never made sense to me because there are periods or certain instances where you will need to break one of those. So it's not just follow these commandments. Believe me, if somebody comes into my house tonight and attempts to attack my wife or my son or myself or even my dog, they're probably going to get shot and they'll probably die. And so that, in my mind, I will go to sleep the next night fine. I will not feel like I've sinned because I did what I needed to do to protect my family. And so just to say do not murder or, you know, these things are not, in my opinion, cut and dry.
And they were taken, you know, they were also taken from other books, holy books. I mean, the Ten Commandments were taken directly from Spell 126 of the Book of the Dead. I mean, absolutely a direct translation, you know, straight across from the specific spells in the Book of the Dead to a lot of the scripture in the Bible. So, yeah, but I suppose that it just goes to show you that these books, the Holy Bible and many other books, are talking the same allegory over and over and over again, each with a little bit different story, each with a little bit different spin, but the message is still generally the same. So, anyway.
And I love that the Bible talks about flat Earth, because I believe that the people back then, even 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, were much more honest than the people who write now. Because the people who do anything now do it for profit. Everything in this world is all about making money for yourself. And so you can look at history and just clearly see everywhere that is shown. It's evident. Look at the mass amount of land and gold and wealth that the Catholic Church has. And that's simply because they came with a certain opinion of the Bible and with everything that allowed them to gain followers that give them money. And so God doesn't need money. Sorry.
You wouldn't think.
No.
And, you know, there's Grizz Frank in the chat group is saying, you know, the Bible's not saying do not murder. It actually says thou shalt not kill, not murder. And then he follows it up with self-defense is not murder. No, it's not. It's self-defense, but it is killing. And technically, even if you're killing in defense of somebody that you're protecting, technically, because of the commandment says thou shalt not kill, you're breaking that commandment. So what does that do?
There's an excellent point, though, of humans. We have taken it, and we've created the laws that say what is manslaughter, what is murder one. You know, that's what I'm saying is good about humanity, is we have the mind and the capability to take the book that is a history of the world and change it and adjust it to meet real-world, current-day lifestyles. And if there's a gay couple that have been together for 8 years, who knows, any amount of years, and they love each other and want to live together and want to profess that love in front of their family and friends, who is anybody to step in there and say you can't? Yeah. It simply is not it's not okay for you to affect someone else's life. And I've said that many times in many of my videos. That is the problem, is that you can do whatever you want to yourself. I don't care if you take drugs. I don't care if you smoke weed. I don't care if you shoot up heroin. As long as you are doing that to yourself in your house, live your life. I don't care how you, I don't make claims about anybody's life until you bring it out and say, well, now we're going to teach this in school.
Yeah, start affecting my life with it.
Right.
Then you're crossing the line.
Absolutely. And so a lot of these emails that I get are, it just drives me bananas because these people say, I agree with everything you're saying and all the deceptions that you mention and everything that you say I'm seeing as well, except for you need to accept Jesus. And then they'll tell me, oh, Mr. Jeranism, who says, open your mind, there's truth inside. You don't seem to be very open-minded when it comes to Jesus. And it's like, do these people not realize that they just wrote that? Who is the one being closed-minded about Jesus?
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's
mean,
pretty crazy.
It's insanity. So anyway, I mean, and I don't like to harp on that. Let's move on to more flatter stuff because, again, I don't mind who you worship. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead and if you want to call Jesus your Savior and you think that Him rising from the dead is the reason you will live an afterlife, by all means, enjoy that belief. But if you're going to email me and make comments about my beliefs, then expect a response. And I'm not going to back away because some people now think I'm the
the Antichrist.
Antichrist, yeah. The one that was written about is me, in case you guys didn't know it.
Yes,
The
Mr. Jeran.
Jesuit shill, you know.
Let me take one really quick.
Sure,
11
go.
Liberation wrote, during sunrise and sunset, when both the sun and the moon are visible, it's clear that the angle of the sunshine on the moon's surface does not match. Does this suggest that the moon is backlit? In my opinion, yes, it does suggest that the moon is backlit. And, you know, I've stated earlier why I believe that's true. Now, of course, if you were to ask my wife, Cammie, about that, she would say, no, there is absolutely a reason why that works in her model. And one of these days we're going to have to actually get her on here so she can explain it as soon as we get all the graphics. But in my opinion, the answer to that question is yes. I do believe that the moon is independently lit, and I do believe that the light that we see come off of it does not come from reflection of the sun. Not only is it a totally different type of light, but it sure makes the model of eclipses a whole lot easier when you're looking at it as an independent light source. What do you think about that, Jeran?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to draw my particular model. Right now, based on those photos I've taken, I think that both the sun and the moon are both disks. So I think that they are either angled or displayed for us in such a way that they appear to be, for instance, the moon appears to be like an upright ball. But I think it's actually a disk that is facing us, and that's why everyone sees the same side. I mean, if you think about it, where the moon is, there should be people that should see underneath it a little more than others, but we all see the same face, just different perspectives of that face. And I've taken pictures, and they're on my channel, of the sun behind the clouds, and it is not a ball at all to me. Now, again, these are things that I can't say are facts because I certainly don't have any proof to tell you other than what my current observations are. And we keep looking and we keep testing and trying different models because eventually there'll be one that works. But I think more importantly than that is, again, they work. So just the fact that we have a sun and moon that operate in such perfect tandem that we're able to predict eclipses and live here with the right amount of heat that doesn't kill us. I mean, if you just think about the fact that we can only live between, what, negative 100 and 125 degrees Fahrenheit, you know, you're talking about a 200 degree or 250 degree variance that allows us to live. And that heat comes from a sun 92 million miles, 93 million miles away. Yet, even Bob has stated before, we can see the stars clearer when we're on a mountain 11,000 feet than we can from the ground. I mean, you will get sunburnt easier if you are at 7,000 feet on a mountain than if you are at the beach. So how is that possible? We're talking 93 million miles, and you're saying that the 7,000 foot difference, which is nothing in regards to it's a 1 mile. I mean, think of the percentage as 0.0001% of that distance is able to almost fry your body. So there's just some clear things that are out there that tell us it's all make-believe. I have an excellent picture that I start out my next video with that someone took from a plane of the sun. The thing is right next to the damn plane. It's got a hot spot right on top of the clouds that looks like it's not more than a couple hundred miles from them. It is so evident that the sun is not nearly as far as they say. And we also all have the ability to look outside and see how far can you see where you start to lose your ability to see detail. And think of the detail that you can see on the moon. And yet, in the globe Earth, that these guys like Red's Rhetoric and all his little buddies and Christopher Hitchslap, all these guys that they subscribe to, is make-believe. 250,000 miles away you think the moon is, and you can see detail on it. Do you think that if I stood on a mountain from California, I would be able to see detail on a building in New York? Well, guess what? That's only 3,000 miles. So I can't see that kind of detail, but I can see detail 245,000 miles away. It's insane, and anyone who believes it needs to simply search themselves to, do you believe it because the facts make sense, or do you believe it because you were taught it? And it would be absolute insanity if you found out that everything you were taught and everyone who teaches it and every book that it is full of shit.
Yeah.
That's what you're afraid of.
You know, Jeran, one of the things that really got to me when I was, on Maui, again, when I was looking at the Big Dipper and looking at the constellations, and then, of course, I come back to Colorado and I look at it again, and there is such a dramatic difference in size and perspective of the Big Dipper in Colorado versus on Maui. And, we're talking about a 3,500-mile difference, roughly, between here and there. And, if the stars are trillions of miles away, again, there's no way that these piddly few thousand miles should make any difference whatsoever on the perspective. Yet it made all the difference in the world. And I'm going to kind of go out and ask you guys something here, because this seems kind of crazy to me even. But even with all the models and everybody saying that, well, the sun looks like it's about 3,200 to 3,300 miles, and so is the moon, is that far away. Even when I consider that, and I look at some of those pictures that people have shot from balloons or model rockets, and they get up there around 100,000 feet, and the sun, to me, looks like it's directly a beam, like straight across from that perspective point. And so, I say to myself, it's like, well, what is the possibility that the sun is even considerably lower than the 3,000 miles? Sometimes just by looking at it, it looks like, it may not even be any higher than maybe 300 miles or 330 miles, if you want to keep with the Masonic numbers or something like that. But there's no way it looks 93 million miles. And honestly, I have to wonder if it even looks 3,000 miles away when you look at some of those videos. Have you ever thought about that when you look at those?
Yeah, I don't. I told you, I don't think that it's that far up at all. I think sometimes, well, at least for me, my head gets confused when I'm thinking thousands of feet versus thousands of miles. Like, to think how far in reality 3,000 miles is, that's a ridiculous amount of distance.
All the way across the country.
Right. And so, no, I don't think, and I know we've measured it before at 3,000 miles, and I think we need to do some of those measurements again. And again, I don't think the way it's displayed to us means that those distances will probably not always be correct. It's not as easy as just doing the triangulation or the Pythagorean theorem. It's not that easy, because those things work with physical things that we can touch on Earth. We can get me and someone else, and we know the baseline between us, and so we're able to measure our angles and then take that third item, and yes, we can come up with the angle that it must be, because it has to add to 180, and from that we can come up with the distance or the height that it is or whatever. But those things might not work astronomically if what Bob just said was true. For instance, the distance or the difference in perception of those constellations based on where you're at. So if we could go touch a star, or we could go touch a moon like NASA says you can, then those things would make sense. But that's what you don't understand, is that they had to go to the moon. They had to say, we've been here, we touched it, because then their math makes sense. But they've never been there. You can't go to the moon. So, and those things are clear. And I mean, there's still people out there that will scream and yell, what an idiot I am for thinking we didn't go to the moon, when what more can you do but just sit back and just shake your head at somebody who says that? Because all I can think is, one day, are they going to feel like such an idiot? Because it's going to come out, it's going to be seen that that was all a hoax. It's all a joke. to prove their non-reality as reality, and you're not only just accepting it. I can understand people accepting it, but then coming and yelling at me or saying I'm a retard or that my parents are siblings, all because you feel like backing a lie. That's sad.
Yep. And you know what's funny is when they do get to the point where they think, "Oh my God, what an idiot I was for even thinking that," all I can say is, "Welcome to the club." Because
yeah, we all went through it.
oh, absolutely. I look at it now. I was like, "What the hell was I thinking?" You know, it's like there's just no way that any of this, that I can't even believe I bought any of it. And,
no, and when you think about it, didn't you just go through life kind of not even paying attention to it? I honestly could care less when the full moon, half moon, crescent moon, waning, waxing, could care less. I don't even remember even thinking about it, because they give you this information, they tell you it's fact, they tell you smarter people than you have discovered it, smarter people than you have explained it, it's in books if you want to read about it, so it just kind of makes you go, why would I read about something that somebody's already proven is true? I got to go to work, I got to make money for my family, I've got to feed my dog, I've got basketball game I want to watch tomorrow night. It makes you very, it makes you just blind to the amazing creation that is in front of you every single day that is not accidental. It is not just random chance in the universe that we're sitting on a planet or a plane, take out the T, that is unbelievably amazing, perfect. Look how it works. Look at the operation of the entire thing. Like I said, the heat, that just in that 250-degree range, but we're taken care of, despite the fact that we supposedly go closer to the sun and further from the sun, and that doesn't even work with seasons. All these crazy things, and that we're flying around the galaxy. I think we've traveled something like 14 billion miles in a year. I mean, that is insanity. And it just, you need to take a day, 2 days, a week, and just say what I needed to say to realize all this, which was, screw everything. I'm tired of trusting people. Let me just do the research myself, look at things myself. And when I step back from that, everything started to make sense. Everything becomes clear. All of a sudden, you appreciate the day. You appreciate the night. You appreciate trees. You start realizing that everything that we need to live is given to us. There's grain. We can make pasta. We can make vegetables. We can have fruits. Unlimited fruit. Every damn apple tree grows apples that have seeds that grow more apple trees. We don't need to pay for food. We don't need to go to the grocery store and get food and pay money to Safeway and to, Kroger so that these people can get rich. We don't need to do all the things that we do. It's a setup. It's a hoax. And we all fell for it. And the first step at getting our lives back is accepting that we were fooled. And you may be happy with your life, and you may say, no, I'm fine with the globe model. Then that's fine. Go be a slave. Enjoy it. You'll never get rich. And I say, okay, maybe 1 out of 1,000 people will somehow get lucky and be rich. But the rich are the people who set up the hoax.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that get rich. You basically work, and you might make $150,000 a year and feel pretty good about yourself and live in a nice neighborhood. But you are one of very few, and there's a ton of people out there suffering because of the hoax. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. I'm not okay with that. Yeah. Not only do I not do well and all, but I look at the people that are less fortunate than me, which are many, much more than 75%, that don't even get to live the life I live.
Yep. Hey, I want to ask a guy in the chat, Dave Johnson, says backup Dave J, where he says the moon, sun, and stars are lights. The moon and sun are the same size projection at the same height, 32.234 miles high, 170,000 foot plus. The starlights are on a plane above that. So that's interesting, Dave. I have never heard anybody actually claim that the moon and the sun are at 33 miles high, other than what I just posited 5 minutes ago. And I'm just curious, where did you come up with that information?
Does he mean the diameter of them? Because that's how big they say that the size is. Or did he say actual distance?
He's saying the height.
Yeah, he's saying
Really?
the height, which by observation, empirically, I have to agree with that. I have to wonder, if that actually is correct, because, like I said, when I look at those videos, the sun looks very much directly abeam to those objects up there at 100, 110,000 feet that are photographing them. So, I have a hard time even swallowing 3,000 miles when I look at that, and for good reason, because it looks like it's directly on the same plane.
Now, there's something else too that takes place with that, because I had my wife looking at pictures like the NASA photos where we look at the sun and we see the same exact thing as we see with the amateur balloons that go up, which is really interesting. And so when we look on Earth, like I look up at the sun when it's above. Like I don't ever look at the sun and say, "Oh, look, the sun looks like it's just kind of like straight across from me." Like I could just kind of maybe go a little distance and I'll be right there to it. But when we look at either the NASA photos or the balloon photos, like you were saying, it's like almost a straight shot across, or maybe in the NASA photo it's just up a little bit, but it looks so close compared to what we're told is supposed to be 93 million miles away. So just going from down here on the ground, just go up. I don't know if it's 30, I don't know if it's 70, if it's 100,000 feet, however high it goes, like a drastic distance between how far the sun looks. I mean, if it's 93 million miles away, it shouldn't look that much closer. It shouldn't look that much different.
Yeah. Dave says that he did the calculation himself, and that he is going to do a video to explain it briefly. Dave, I will be looking forward to that video because I'm very intrigued with that, with your math there and how you arrived at that. And I'm sure we can hardly wait to see what kind of comments are going to come up on that video. Hope you got your tinfoil hat on. But
well,
yeah,
Dave also thinks I'm the Antichrist. So
does he really? Okay, well,
That's the Dave. That's the Dave who said it.
Is that,
well,
okay,
actually,
well,
I'm unsure. Now, the reason why is because there is a Dave Johnson with the same little image, and that one says Dave Johnson backup Dave J. So I guess somebody could technically make a Jeranism backup that I would hope people wouldn't assume was me.
Right. Yeah.
Like they're doing with Mr. Thrive and Survive. Did you see that video?
Yeah.
Somebody has made a fake one.
Yep.
Yeah, but they put spaces in the name.
Yeah.
So it's like Mr. Space, Thrive Space, and Space Survive.
I wonder if you can have that turned off or shut down, because that's impersonating. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess you can probably complain to YouTube about it, but who knows what they're going to do about it.
I'm not even sure there's people on the other end of those complaints.
Okay, so Dave says, I take the moon and or sun and bring it into focus with a telescope. Keep that into place. Lay the telescope sideways, Pompo Shalong sun effect, so-called, and you will see the focus point or focal point. Okay, the X is at 32.234 miles. That's super interesting because observation alone would tell me that Dave must be correct in that figure, even though that's crazy. And really, when you think about it, another thing that when Cammie and I were looking at some of these flat Earth videos, they always showed the sun and the moon as relatively large-size orbs. But if you consider that the possibility that they're really only about 32 miles across, that would be kind of like seeing the little dot that represents Denver on the map, going around. So I mean, they're greatly exaggerated on the maps, even the flat Earth map. And I think that's probably something that we need to keep in mind when we model it in the future, because it seems like everybody that models the sun and the moon or the flat Earth just gets the scale way wrong.
Are you guys ever thinking of actually building something physical?
I have.
Yeah, I think that's what we have to do.
Yeah, exactly. I want to do it. I keep going over this video in my head of how to possibly do it, how to make it work, but I haven't tried anything yet. I've even thought about. I've thought about doing like, because I want to have the globe model and how that's supposed to just to be able to take a look at things and see how it might work. And I thought about like maybe buying some type of model. Not sure how much they cost and what is out there, and if you can do like real light experiments and all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's we've been trying to look into how we would do it. Same thing though. I think that the good thing is if you were to make a model, you could probably have the flat Earth and the globe Earth based on the same kind of model. So very difficult to do, but anybody else see any other questions?
Let's see. There was a few in there. I don't know if Missa has any. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say is when I sent you that video about the laser, the new laser that I got last night.
Oh yeah, tell everybody about that.
Yes, I ordered another new laser. We had a little bit of shipping damage on the laser that Jeran was using. Yes, fortunately, after bullying on the United States Postal Service, I got them to pay for a new one. So I went ahead and upgraded it. And TJ, they just came out with this laser. It was from Luck Laser, is where I got it from, and they just came out with it like 2 weeks ago. But it is a 3,500 milliwatt, which is 3.5 watts, which is 350% stronger than the laser was that I initially had gotten for Jeran. And of course, it's a blue laser, which has a much better beam divergence. It's a much tighter beam divergence. But one of the cool things about it is, you know, when I looked at it, one of the things that they show in the video is not only can you burn paper at 10 feet away, but you can also melt solder. So I told Jeran, I go, guess what? Now I can do work on electronics boards and melt solder, do my soldering from 10 feet away. But
where are these guys located at?
They're in China. All the laser pluses are in China. Every one of them, even if they have American names. But
I don't understand then, because that other company, Wicked Laser, which took freaking 9 months to get a laser, they said that they can't sell to the United States anymore.
Well, there's a law that you can't call it a laser pointer, and I think that's where a lot of these guys got in trouble. Laser pointer has to be below like a super, what is it, 0.5 MW?
Yeah, super low power. And of course, this laser is just a beast at 3,500 milliwatts. So, and they give an open range of it. Minimum, they say 7 miles, and that is the factory spec on it, which I thought was pretty cool. So, I'm thinking that between the camera and the laser, you know, with this kind of range and also with a much better beam divergence, hopefully we can get a lot cooler tests with it. It should be here. They had it in stock, so I should have it within a week. And then we're trying to figure out, you know, what we're doing for like the balloon launch. I don't know if Jeran's going to come out to Colorado or if we're going to wind up going to California. But you know, we definitely want to do some experiments with, you know, some of these new tools that we have. The only thing I'm really waiting on right now, when I'm unsure when it's going to be here, is that new Nikon Coolpix P900 camera, which
still don't have it.
Still don't have it.
That's taken forever.
I know. Well, Nikon apparently had some manufacturing issues with it, and they had to recall a bunch of them for something.
Oh, geez.
And you know, at $600 for that camera, and what it does, like I said, it set a world record zooming record. Yeah. It's just absolutely phenomenal. So everybody and their brother wants one, and so they are backlogged out the wazoo. So you know, I'm just dying to get it.
I saw one on a video on YouTube. This guy was like in this like hotel skyscraper thing. I don't even know how far away. He could have been a mile away. I don't know. And he zoomed all the way in, was kind of spying on this girl in a bikini laying on the beach, and she had no idea that she was being looked at because the guy was so far away.
Yeah, totally. It's ridiculous. I mean, like I said, you know, one of the videos they have is they show a plane flying at 40,000 feet, and the guy's standing on the ground. He just zooms right up to it. And you can read the tail numbers off of it. It's like just crazy. Love it.
So I do see, as more things are popping in the chat here, that Dave Johnson has claimed that I am making up the fact that he called me the Antichrist. So I went to my comments and found it, and I'm going to drop the link right now. Can you see that link?
Yep.
Yep. Well, I can click on it too. That's So are you the only one that can post?
Yeah,
I've got all the power in the world. You might want to try that one. Try it again, Bob. But maybe we can just in the future know that I'm the only one that can drop links.
Okay, yeah, I see the comment. The Jeranism man is an antichrist. That goes well beyond anything else that matters.
Okay,
That's a little harsh, Dave.
Well, all I said was that he called me Antichrist, and then he said I was lying about it and then made it up. So I just wanted to drop that link.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same face and the same name and everything. I don't know, Dave. What do you got to say about that?
So anyway, I certainly wasn't lying. I tell you guys all the time.
He said you are an Antichrist, not the Antichrist.
Antichrist. My bad.
Antichrist, okay.
I can't believe you didn't. I can't believe you changed that one word, Jeran.
I'm such a loser. That's something that the Antichrist would do, though. You know, the Antichrist would change
That's right.
the word around a little bit.
That's right. Always about the deceit. You know, that baby sacrificing. So
both, yes.
We
but
got your number, man.
The only thing I can't do is read the Bible to see that I lose in the end.
That's
Everything
right.
else I'm good at, but that reading thing I can't figure out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that was kind of like Stephen Christ saying the first persons he was going to go after, you know, when he was crowned king of the world.
That was hilarious.
Was the flat earthers. It's like
all people, you know, it's like I'm Christ, and when I get crowned as king, the first people I'm going after are the flat earthers for being like, what?
I know, right?
I better believe in the globe again, and quick.
Yep. Yeah. Christ has got his priorities in order. Yeah.
I already got put on the FEMA list, which I'm sure probably everybody has at some point.
We all are. Yeah.
If you're blocked from what's his name's forum, you're also on the FEMA list.
Yep. Pretty much.
From the No Shields Allowed forum.
Right.
Yep. Okay. So
open-minded group.
I went back and reread your shield profile, and I loved his Jeran came out right away instantly with this high quality video. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of stuff you can do with iMovie templates.
Right. That's you have to type like 6 lines and put in images, and it makes a cool ass. I mean, it makes movies that I couldn't even now with like the newest version of Pinnacle. I can't even make movies like they can. Those things are awesome.
I know, and Mark Sargent. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say Mark Sargent. You know, everybody accused him of the same thing, and he's like, "I'm using Windows Movie Maker."
Right. And he said that something I didn't even know he did is he says he just writes down his script and then reads for like 15 or 20 seconds and then stops it and then starts again. So it sounds very, very good and very tied together. He sounded like he was. I was like, man, I can't speak like that. I say more ums in my video than should be humanly allowed.
Yeah, I noticed that too when I go back and listen to some of these. Say or something like that all the time. It's like, God, when am I going to learn how to talk?
I know, you'd think that by now we would figure it out, but I'm constantly, I mean, if you listen to my first 3 or 4 videos, for some reason I would smack my mouth every minute. Like, I don't know why I was doing that, but now it's like I actually have to think when I'm talking, like, don't smack your mouth, don't say like training yourself all over again.
That's funny. Sweetness has a good question. What was Sweetness's question? Oh, there it is. Let's see the question.
I watched a video the other day that Red's Rhetoric recorded, and it was one of the rockets or something taking off from Earth and going up into space and all the separations and all that, whatever. And then at the end, Red's Rhetoric is like, that's the best video I've ever recorded ever. And I'm like, that's the best thing you've ever recorded. Maybe you should get out and record some more because there's a lot better things than that to record. Jeez.
Yeah. So, let's see. I'm trying to find that Sweetness question. Sweetness question about the moon. Half moon today here in Texas. About 9 p.m., the moon, it around its midpoint in the sky, and the line between the light dark is vertical. Later the night line turns 45 degrees. Okay, I'm missing the question there. Do you guys...
I don't see... I'm reading the same thing. I don't see it either.
Okay. Well, maybe you can re-ask it, Sweetness, because we didn't actually see a question in there. Well, let's see. Here's another one. Questionable journalism. Have a co-host or a guest that does not think the Earth is flat. Oh, well, there you go, Jeran. Do you think you're going to have a co-host or a guest that doesn't think the Earth is flat, other than the religious guy?
Yeah, I would say that I would not mind that. So if you think that's, I'm going to make sure that you are who you say you are. And for instance, I keep getting invited to debate somebody, I can't remember his name now, Skee Ball or something, I don't know. But you go to his channel and he speaks in a fake voice and wears a mask. It's like, I don't understand why these people think, like, what? Like,
That's the alien-looking guy.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even know what they're thinking, but it's like, no, I'm not going to, if you're ashamed of who you are, and I mean, one of the things I saw earlier somebody said is, Jeran, part of accepting Christ is giving up the self. And do people not realize to come out with a channel that has your name in it and talk about the flat earth is not giving up your ego? I mean, it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Insane. I mean, I basically had to give up ever being respected by, I mean, I can't now go get a job with some scientific entity or something. I mean, these things are pretty permanent. So, I mean, I've given up my ego, believe me, in knowing what is right and what is true and what makes me feel good inside and what's not true and what bothers me. And believe me, I'm sure everyone out there that has started feeling the flat earth is definitely more close to reality than the globe realizes that once you start accepting actual truth, it resonates with you.
Yes.
You feel it.
Very much.
Yeah, it just feels better, and it teaches you about everything. That the same thing goes for sickness. The same thing goes for if you're told you're sick and you believe you're sick, then your body's going to act like it's sick. And if you're told you need medication for it, then you're going to take the medication, then you're going to feel like you need the medication to feel better, because that's the lie, and you're just constantly feeding the lie. And if you change your perspective and instead think positively and actually see the truth, man, your world can change tomorrow.
Totally.
And I mean, Bob's taught me a lot about that. And you know, like people say, we agree on everything. Absolutely not. I mean, we've had so many conversations to where, like Bob just said, something I said about crop circles made him look at things differently. He came to me with his model of the moon and the sun, or his wife's model, sorry, and I told them where I had issue with it. And that's what science is, as I've said a million times, is the constant trying to debunk and not just accepting and taking a test and saying, haha, now I'm smart. Now I know all the facts. Now I know how to link people to Wikipedia. I'm a genius.
Right, because we're looking for a model. I mean, we're not doing this, you know, just to hear ourselves talk. We're actually looking for a model that will actually work with, you know, what we're observing. And, you know, we're really not going at this, you know, with an ego involved, because honestly, you know, just from what I've learned, Jeran, just from being on the show for the past, what I think, 5 weeks or so, and the amount of abuse I have taken from people and their comments and calling me, it's like, this is not a lot of fun, you know, in that mindset. I
It's
mean,
like no fun.
Here, yeah, it's no fun at all. I mean, you sit here and you get called down constantly, and all we're doing is we're standing up for what we believe in. If we had a problem with ego, or we were so attached to our ego, we wouldn't be doing this at all, because frankly, I mean, the amount of criticism you get is off the chart. So we do this, and all we're trying to do is come up with something that fits the observed phenomenon. And when we get a model that actually does that, then I think we're going to come out and we're going to say we really have something here. And one of the cool parts about it, you know, just like with Mr. Thrive and Survive, Rich's new video, I think that he has absolutely hit on something that has been a big question for flat earthers for a long, long time, about the Coriolis effect. And he did it beautifully, he did it eloquently, and frankly, I cannot see a fault in what he is saying. And I'm really excited for you, Jeran, and also TJ to check this video out, because I mean, it just lit me up, and you can tell he's excited about it too. And I wrote a comment on there and told him, I said, Rich, I think you really nailed it on this one. You know, especially the way that he applies it to what we are able to observe and what we are able to actually see and how it works in so beautifully with that model. But you know, those victories are far and few between, and we catch a lot of flack in the meantime.
And the great thing is, though, I think that the amount of people, like TJ said, the amount of videos coming out is awesome, because what it is it's piecing everything together. Everybody's discovering something new on their end, and that's what my hope was, is that science is all about testing and retesting. And so there's 7 billion, okay, let's say that's a lie. So there's 5 billion people on the earth, however many. There's so many people that if everyone was out actually enjoying and searching and testing the world that we're in, we would have all the truths in a month. But instead, people are taught what the truth is, and so they go through their lives blind to the evidence that's out there, and just kind of mosey along and call other people names and fight on behalf of NASA and fight on behalf of science. And they say, oh, you think this conspiracy is so huge that every scientist in the world is behind it. And I'm like, you don't understand. Is that we call this the biggest hoax in the world, or the biggest conspiracy, because it goes back before there were scientists. Actual, you know, yes, everybody always does science, but I mean, this hoax was something set up 400 years ago to where every teacher is not teaching what they think is a lie. They absolutely think they're teaching the truth. So the child grows up and believes in that as truth, and they become a teacher, and they become a physics teacher, and they teach it as the truth because they fully believe in it. The hoax is that the fact that those things were never proven. So if something is not proven, now you can't say that to somebody, because what will they say right out the bat? It's science. Of course it's been proven. And you're like, yeah, I know. That's how science is supposed to work. But the hoax is that it was never proven. It has never been proven that we go around the sun. But if that is what is taught as truth, then immediately you think, well, it's science. The scientists have discovered it, and they can test it, so it must be truth. But you need to actually look into it and dig into the fact that they can't test that. All their testing is based on what they get from NASA and distances that they have that can only be proven if we go out and measure them. You can't just say the sun is 93 million miles away. You can't just say that Polaris is 4 light years away or 40 light years away. You can't just say those things. So, yeah, the more videos, the better is kind of, and guys, you want to check out another one. If you just search, I don't have the link, but search rainbows, flat Earth, and the dome. And God, I can't remember the guy's name, Sammy something, or can't think of it. But really excellent videos he started putting out, and the most recent one, he goes out on his front grass and turns on his sprinkler and shows a rainbow that shows up, and just kind of walks around this rainbow and talks about what we're told by science is the truth about a rainbow, and it's absolutely a lie. That it cannot be that those droplets are displaying a prism. It has to be almost the other way around, that each droplet itself is acting as a lens for, and if you also think about it, you have to have a mirror inside your house to make the same effect. So why is it that out in our front yards we can see a rainbow with a sprinkler, but if you brought that sprinkler inside your house, you could not make that rainbow unless you have a mirror? So he talks about the fact that could the dome ceiling or dome apparatus, whatever, could it be a mirror? And it really is a good video, because it makes you think that, wow, that's kind of the only reason, or the only way we'd be able to see that rainbow outside. And on top of that, what shape is the rainbow in? Yeah,
Paul Chief just did a video on that also that was very interesting. I don't know if you know who he is or not, but he's very artistic, and he has kind of a very different way to look at things, and I really appreciate stuff like that. He's definitely artistic. He thinks way outside the box, and I had never even considered that before until I had just watched his video, and it just kind of blew my mind thinking of that, you know, possibility. And I'm not saying that I agree with it at all, but it certainly raises some very intriguing points.
Yeah, and I love that. I love those videos that are making us open our mind. That's the whole goal. And where are all the videos from these globe earthers? Why don't I see anything saying, here's a measurement I did that proves the globe? here's an actual real-world experiment I did that
Instead of
proves
just
the
taking
globe.
it from NASA.
Yeah, there's nothing. They don't have anything. And that's the whole point, is that you're talking about science, so do some science. You know, the fact that we can only dig into the Earth 8 miles till we hit a wall that we can't get past, yet scientists will tell you they know what's at the core of the globe.
And the
Yeah.
and the sun.
18 miles down, and they know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's really, I mean, and how far would the core be? 8,000 miles, right? Or even
Whatever the radius is of the Earth.
the radius is 8,000 miles. So they're close, you know. They're almost
Yeah,
there.
real close, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh boy.
somebody said, let's see, where was that? Somebody mentioned that one of the highest recorded gas-filled balloon reached 173,000 feet, launched in 2002 from Japan, very close to 33 miles up. Just a coincidence, I'm sure. And you know what? James Kiernan wrote that. That's amazing, actually. I would love to see what type of video footage it had at 33 miles, or if that's even available, and see if the sun is absolutely straight across from it. That would just blow my mind, because it's really, and I'm really
Sounds
wondering
really
about that.
Yeah, you'll like my next video also has a little dedication to the truth talkers that is NASA, who, if you guys were looking at the NASA news from the last week, they said, oh, we grew lettuce for the first time in space.
And it was red. Did
Yeah,
you see that?
way to go, guys. You did something that humans did on Earth thousands of years ago.
I know,
Fantastic.
but did you see the whole picture, Jeran? Everything was red. It was like what they do on the Mars videos, you know? They
Right.
put red filter over everything and say, yeah, look at this space lettuce, it's red.
Well, here's the thing. Get this, Bob. So I have tons of articles from 1992 when we grew lettuce and ate lettuce in space.
And
Yeah.
it's sheer joy.
So it's like, oh, and the astronauts got to eat something grown in space for the first time. Yet every article that came out this week said we grew lettuce for the first time in space.
Right.
So they're even so brave that they take things we did 20 years ago and just reintroduce them
Right.
as new. And go look it up on Google. There's every news company in the world has an article about how great and wonderful these guys in space are for growing lettuce and eating lettuce for the first time, and it's a flat out bullshit
Wow.
lie.
Yeah, it is.
And it's insanity that they're NASA, so everybody thinks
Yeah.
the world of them.
It's kind of like you know that Skylab allegedly had a shower, right?
Right.
And it's ridiculous because when you look at the picture of it, it's like one of those old timey showers that go around the old bathtubs that have the curtain that go around 360 degrees. That was their shower in Skylab. And of course, nothing to stop the water from floating out the top or anything. But you know, they obviously never had to demonstrate that shower in a working environment. But you look at that, this is like, I looked at that and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, man. That looks like one of my sister's old houses in downtown Denver that is like 130 years old and has one of these antique bathrooms in it. And this is what they had in Skylab.
Oh boy. Have you watched the ISS live lately, Bob?
Not in the past couple of weeks since I got back from Hawaiian up.
They've got something new that is interesting, and I don't know what it is. I can't find any description of it. But when you go there, occasionally it will show a split screen, and on one side it says macro, and on the other side it says micro, and it looks like a petri dish being stirred with liquid, and on the right side it shows you the close-up view. I have no idea what it's claiming to be.
They're not.
They don't make any statement about it, but so now the 24-hour ISS cam is interrupted every 90 minutes by 30 minutes or 40 minutes of blue screen. Then you get turned off for the dark side of the Earth, and now we get a split screen micro-macro that doesn't have any explanation for 20 minutes. They are down to 10 minutes an hour, if that, of footage of their little model.
I know. And again, what's up with the dark side of the Earth? I mean,
It's such a
they're
joke.
supposedly 250 miles up in the air, which is line of sight with everything. Even the crudest and most low power of radio signals should be able to reach any relay station in the world. It's just ridiculous that there's even any outage whatsoever on it. That just has never flown for me.
No, and these are the kind of excuses that the globe earthers will make on behalf of NASA. That's the most upsetting thing, is as humans, we should all be backing each other up and saying, NASA, take a damn rover to the moon, show us the moon landing spots so we can be done with the stupid hoax of the moon landings. But rather than that, you have 10% of the world saying, show us proof, and 90% of the world saying, you idiots, they already have shown us proof. They've shot lasers. They've shown pictures from the orbiter that are a pixel change. You know, these are the kind. So you're getting fought against from people who just are afraid to say, yeah, NASA show us proof. Like they're afraid that much for their lives or their sanity that they're afraid anybody who's of scientific stature is afraid of somebody calling them stupid. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, that's what I learned in those atheist forums when I kind of went over there and said, okay, I think I might be an atheist. I want to debate this. Is everybody who debates on behalf of saying they're an atheist doesn't know anything. They just repeat stuff that they hear from Dawkins and that they hear from Krauss, and it's all complete horseshit. And that's what they do. That's what they're all about. They'll tell you that we went to the moon, and rather than have any evidence, it's just, oh, you're so stupid. Why don't you get a tinfoil hat? What, are lizard people running the White House too? And that's their way of debating. That's what they feel is actual evidence.
It's their defense mechanism, because you know at the core of it, they're scared of
not fitting in.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's almost like, be scared. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. So it's like, don't be scared.
Yeah.
It's the truth. Like, I mean, that's what they do. They want to be, if there's a forum and they're talking about the moon landings, they would much rather be part of the majority that makes fun of the other group than to be part of the minority saying, hold on a second, guys, let's look at the facts.
Well, who wouldn't?
So,
well, and that's part of the problem, because they don't really have the facts, because they've been listening to those very same people that are, talking about the moon landings. Therefore, in their world, that is the facts. And, that's unfortunate that people are so unable to think outside the box to any degree whatsoever.
I know. And they just let it, like the fact that they lost all those boxes of footage. They'll just make excuses for it, like, oh, what, you've never lost anything? Well, no, the greatest moment of my life, if I had 1,300 reels of footage of it, I probably wouldn't lose it. That's just something I'm willing to say. Do I lose my keys every now and again? Maybe. But I don't lose 900 boxes of video footage of the most amazing thing I've ever done.
Yes, mankind's greatest achievement, and they just, whoops, don't know what happened to it.
And I understand why they can't even admit that they didn't go. I mean, have you ever watched the parades that they had after?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a million reasons. I mean, the whole thing is a fraud. The people, if they came out tomorrow and mainstream news said, guess what, America, NASA lied to us, your government went along with it. Can you imagine if something like that actually happened? What kind of backlash there would be?
There's people who would still believe. In fact, I bet you 50% of Americans would believe the actual announcing of that was a hoax and that we actually did go. In fact, I've seen people in forums say even if Neil Armstrong came out and said that we didn't go, they would still believe we went.
Yeah.
That is classic.
It's unfortunate. Well, it's just like, and then they have their disinformation agents, like I was talking about Richard Hoagland last week, who was making comments about the video that was released showing the moon going around the Earth.
Right.
And he goes, oh, no, well, that was fake, but they're just doing that to try and keep you dumbed down and out of the super secret space program.
Right.
It's like, it is so desperate. And like I said, I was dumb enough at one point. That's what led me to Flat Earth, because Hoagland said it, and I'm like, okay, I really like Richard Hoagland. He must be right. He tells a great story and all this stuff, and so he must be telling the truth, because he used to work for NASA and he's going against them. And if he says that there must be a secret space program, well, that's what I have to look into. And so that's when I really started, looking very carefully at NASA's data and saying, well, gee, if they had a super secret space program, you would think that they would supplement some of their bullshit that they put out with some real pictures of space.
Just keep us happy.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen. So that tells me very clearly that they simply do not have the ability in any way, shape, or form to go up beyond however high they can go, low Earth orbit, if that. It just makes it very clear to me if they can't even supplement it with the weakest of additional information.
And I'm not tooting my own horn because I think it's a huge group project, but you're telling me that us getting on YouTube and screaming about the fact that they don't have pictures of Earth has nothing to do with the fact that in the last 3 months, NASA has come back with pictures of the Earth.
Has everything.
I mean, and the fact is they're so disgusting because you can't fake it anymore. Like, it's just it's CGI, it's terrible computer graphics, and if you just go and look at it, you should be able to really think on it, stare at it, and realize I don't live there. That is not me rotating on that stupid model with the non-moving clouds. And that is not 17,000 miles per hour that the thing is flying. I mean, remember when you look at somebody, I did go back and look at the Russian spacewalk. What a joke. And, I mean, you're telling me those people are hanging on to the side of the ISS as it flies 17,500 miles per hour? Now, because they're in space, do you not feel speed? I mean, all of it is just unexplainable nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense. Are they protected by their own little atmosphere, or how would that work? Bob, you tell me. If you're traveling in space, then there's no wind, there's nothing blowing against you?
Well, yeah, theoretically it would be a pretty smooth ride, but so you wouldn't really feel anything as far as any turbulence, because turbulence is caused by heated air. Rising air currents, when you're in an airplane. But of course, when you're in deep space and you're at temperatures that are, nearing absolute zero, and there's nothing but vacuum out there, one would think that the only thing that you could run into that would make any sort of gyration would be like a meteor or, some other, type of space debris.
Which should be constant. I mean, micrometeors should be hitting you every second.
Constantly, especially during the meteor showers, like the Perseids and stuff like that. But that doesn't happen, and so.
Nor have we ever seen one satellite from the ISS view.
No, yeah. And God, who was it that released a video? Was that you or somebody else? I was watching a video of it was in the comments section, I think, somewhere, where they said, "Oh, here you go, all you flat earthers. Here's a picture of all the satellites. They're all cataloged and all this stuff." And I looked at that, and it was just the dumbest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And how anybody could ever believe that.
Isn't it something like 12,000?
I've heard figures as high as 20,000, and I've heard them as low as 1,200.
Now, people need to realize when they say, "I don't understand this hoax. Why would they hoax the globe Earth?" Well, guess what? Somebody has paid big money to have these 20,000 satellites sent by NASA into space. So if the satellites aren't there, where's the money, guys? Follow the money. It's in somebody's pockets.
Yeah, what's the reason? I've seen that question float across the window, too. It's like, are you kidding? There are so many reasons that it almost boggles the mind. The fact that if you're religious, it would disconnect you from a creator. If we are, in fact, on a flat Earth, or we are on some sort of an enclosed system, that would mean that somebody had to build it, whether it was an all-seeing, all-knowing divine God, or just a civilization that's more advanced than we are, possibly, one of the races mentioned in the Bibles or whatever. There are so many ways that it disconnects us from our roots, whatever they are, that alone should tell you that it's being used as a foundation to control your very mind. When you
think about it this way, when you think, tell me if I'm missing anything here, but everything is backwards. Like, doctors destroy health.
Yes.
Lawyers destroy justice. Yep. Universities destroy knowledge.
Yep.
Governments destroy freedom.
Yep.
And the major media destroys any information that we get. And religions destroy spirituality.
It's all backwards.
Every bit of it.
And of course, this is what they say about Satan, the great deceiver, how he works. And like I said before, it's Satan. May or may not exist. To whatever your belief systems are. One thing that definitely exists is a dark side of humanity. Whether or not you want to associate that with a being by the name of Satan, or just realize that we live in a duality, and that there are going to be representations of all kinds of things that we perceive as either evil or incredibly good or somewhat benign, somewhat in between. That's the nature of this reality. And somebody is trying to usurp the true nature of our reality, whether we were created by other beings or by an almighty God, and they're trying to make us think that we're nothing special, we're just some sort of random occurrence, and that humanity really is absolutely nothing other than just a turd in a punch bowl somewhere. And I personally can't believe that, and that to me is one of the biggest reasons that you would want to disconnect people from the very place that they believe that they're living on, is to gain control of their mind and make them believe exactly what you want to make them believe. And my God, if there isn't enough evidence of all these terrible things going on, all the shenanigans that are going on, you have to be completely blind.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of how I look at it. It's crazy.
Somebody just said Satan is God, Jesus is Lucifer, and they're not too far from the truth. But what I said to this lady that was emailing me and saying how crafty, I don't understand how crafty Satan is. I asked her, is he crafty enough to write a fake Jesus into the Bible? It's like she gives him all this power, but like he can't touch the book.
God can't do it.
Right.
Like, so funny. It's just you have to really think about what you're saying. That I understand what you were taught, because I was taught the same thing, and it wasn't until, like Bob said, you have to get out of that in order to see it. And I still remember, and it's funny to even talk about, Melissa and I laid in bed and held hands and prayed to God to give us permission to look outside of our religions for a year.
He didn't say no.
And he didn't say no. Not that he talked to us either, but we actually felt like we needed to do that. That it was not okay for us to start researching what we believed in. That's what we actually were taught to believe. And it's so sad. And it was really that moment that we said, if you're real, if you're true, if the Bible's legit, we will come back to you in a year. These are the things that will happen. That's what happens with truth. Please give us that year. And we said amen. And the next day we started our year. And that was 3 or 4 years ago. And
then you came to the conclusion that God didn't write the Bible using Microsoft Word 2000 BC, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was really funny because it was really quick for us to become atheists, and then I had to spend some time there to where you just hear what they say and you're like, what the hell is going on? Like, and you looked up everything, the Kabbalah, what everybody believes, and it all just makes sense when you're like, this is just a bunch of humans making assumptions about a God they know is there, but not sure where, and so they just make up fantastical things that control people, things that glorify them, bring people's attention to them, and that was something we saw and said, we don't want this. I don't want that. I don't want any attention on me. I want people to turn their attention to the earth and study and research and science and get to the truth, because you cannot look at this world and say accidental. And if you do, you're fighting something real deep, or you've already thrown it away. But there's just no way. And I've asked people before, and granted this is kind of a slanted experiment, but I've really tried to ask everybody that I know, do you feel created? And of course, you're never going to get an atheist to say, no, yes, I do, because then you're not an atheist. So it's it's obviously a slated experiment. But what I've learned is everybody feels created, and then at a certain point they question it, and so they have to go to the only alternative, and it just so happens the alternative claims to be the end-all be-all of knowledge in science. And it's very easy to go over there and say, no, I don't feel created, you idiot. We're all accidental. We're all stardust, Big Bang. We all assembled into circles and rotated, and gravity existed out of nowhere and held everything in place. And then you just cannot explain that. And the way they explain evolution is the biggest joke of all time. It is a fact. You will hear people swear on everything that it's a fact, that it's proven science, and it's just because science says, well, this is the most proof, or what evidence leads us to believe. But what you forget is that science cannot, will not, ever attribute something to anything that they can't test and measure. So they can't test and measure God. So of course God cannot come up in any of their conclusions, so they have to make things up. So if you follow science, yeah, you have to believe in evolution because it's their only explanation for us being here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's completely fabricated. Number one, they tell you, oh, it's hundreds of millions of years, billions of years of evolution. We say, well, what about 67 million years ago when the dinosaurs went extinct? So you have to figure any animal of any decent size also was extinct, right? So the biggest animal around might have been a badger-like size animal. So in 67 million years, we evolved from a damn badger to human beings flying to space. Give me a break.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely fabricated nonsense.
And the lie just gets bigger all the time, doesn't it? They just keep building on it.
Every second. Bob, I would like to know your opinion on something. I'd love to challenge you to ask you questions.
Okay.
What's your feeling on dinosaurs?
What are my feeling on dinosaurs? Well, you know, I've looked at that, and I certainly don't believe that they were around 65 million years ago, if they were even around at all. I have seen some interesting evidence that if they did exist, then chances are it was just a few thousand years ago. And the reason I say that is some of the archaeological finds, you know, find like dinosaur fossils or dinosaur footprints or some sort of dinosaur remains, and in close proximity, they will have like human footprints, stuff that shouldn't actually ever be there. But the thing that really detracts me from it is that, you know, they say that they have all these bones and they reassemble these bones, and honestly, a lot of people have come forward and said, well, these could be bones of a completely different animal, you know, that we knew that actually did exist. And so what they're basically
sometimes
saying,
they find just a few bones and then create the others.
Exactly. But when you look at the actual physical makeup of like a dinosaur, like a T-Rex and their little bitty front arms and stuff, it's like, you know, God makes some pretty bizarre creatures, but you have to wonder how those even functioned, right? So you look at the design and how they've got them put together, and it's like, what would a creator be thinking to make something like that is so bizarrely, you know, non-functional seemingly? So I'm kind of somewhere in between on them. A part of me, you know, believes that a lot of it's just absolutely made up and a complete crock, and another part of me says, well, if they did exist, it certainly wasn't 65 million years ago.
Right.
It was much
that
more.
I think is kind of clear. I mean, I think that those you've seen on my video where that one guy from the Christian radio station tries to basically pay $20,000 to the archaeologist plus pay for his the dating of the bone that has the little bit of material, has a little bit of material in it, and they just will not allow it. And that's because those bones would come back at around 10 to 15,000 years old, and of course they only need, you have to be between 65 million and 125 million years in order to be a dinosaur. So they won't let you test those bones, even if you're offering them money, because it would ruin their whole lives. You're an archaeologist who digs dinosaur bones for a living and has all these reports that you've put out and findings. If it ever came out that they were 10,000 years old, your entire livelihood is gone.
Yeah, everybody but Michael Cremo would look like an idiot. And Michael Cremo, I mean, that guy, he comes up with some really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And I like, here's a comment here in the chat. Antonio Sabiritz.
Banderas? Oh.
Yeah, no, he says fossils are dated according to the rock layer they are found in. The rock layer is dated by the fossils around it. Circularity, anyone? It's like, amen, brother.
Yep. And these are the things that people need to research. And like the whole, I'm going to put a link in this description too for people to, I found a 110-page paper on Stonehenge that takes you from the 1700s through every little thing that they've done. And it's so funny. I mean, it's the same thing that as far as dating it, there's no way to date that. You cannot date rocks, number one, even though they say that they're taking organic material from around the site and dating that. So I don't understand, because you found a fire pit near Stonehenge that has ashes in it that when dated comes back to 5,000 years old, do you then assume that Stonehenge? So what if you went in my backyard and dug up some ashes back there that dated to 3,000? Does that mean my house was built in 3,000 years ago?
Or if you find me in a group of like 20 women, and all the women are 20 years old, and you don't know my age, but you're like, well, all the women are 20, so she's got to be 20 also. Like, that doesn't work.
No, it just doesn't make sense. And if you look at the history of the world, to think of how far and how many people there are now, where are all the bodies of the people that lived 100,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, 25,000 years ago? Where are these graves? There is.
Right.
They find one. Here's Lucy. Well, what was Lucy by herself?
Yeah.
She didn't have any family, or she didn't live in a community.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing but Lucy. Doesn't add up.
There's another question here that says, Jeran, or from Sharon O. Don't confuse the Word of God with your religion's interpretation. The Word of God, when understood correctly, is what helps us develop and have faith. Jesus can then write His Word in your heart.
Oh, yeah.
So these are why I keep bringing these up, is because people just keep saying the same thing, and you're saying not to believe in my religion's interpretation. Okay, I got that. Second thing, the Word of God, when understood correctly, is what helps us develop and have faith. So now you're saying that the book is the Word of God. So my question to you would be, how do we know that the book is the Word of God? And I'm guessing it would be because it says it is. So again, I go back to the fact that if that's true, then the God of the Bible killed people, flooded people, played with people. He took their free will away, as far as he hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not allow the slaves to leave, so that then God could kill the firstborn of every Egyptian to show his power. So if you want to worship that God, you are absolutely, you can do that without any problem in my book. But when you come here and say things like that, you're asking other people to worship a killer, a murderer, a person that that wants us to behave and sets rules and regulations for us while he goes around and does whatever he wants. Guess what? That's called a tyrant. It's what Mao Zedong did. It's what the United States government does. It's complete manipulation, control, and you are welcome to worship that God if you choose. However, if we're going based on just the book, then I don't see how you can possibly believe that.
You can't, because the book is written in a lot of different types of writing, such as there's some poetry, there's some allegory, there's some literal, there's some representative talk, and if we're supposed to, I guess, interpret it and try to determine which one's which, or which story is allegorical, which story is a poem, and it's technically, I guess, basically ambiguous, the interpretation, right? Like, you can't then say that the book is all truth if it's put in your hands to determine which things I should take seriously and which things I shouldn't. Like, you can't just.
And on top of that, look at the translations. There's words that can't even be translated into other languages. So
Right.
what you're given in everyone says, oh, the King James 1611 version. First of all, they act like that's the end all be all. 1,600 years after Jesus. Do you realize how long 1,600 years is, and how many things can change, and how many books can be added and subtracted and changed completely? And these words could be anything. It's like the whole thing with virgin, which the actual translation of that word is maiden, and whoever translated it to English got it wrong, and now we believe Jesus was born to a virgin, not to a maiden. And so these things are clear evidence, and all you need to do is see one mistake in the Bible, and it should teach you that it's wrong, that it's not wrong, that it's not word for word from God. And for you to believe that anyway is insanity in my book. It took a while to get to that conclusion, but if you think that God can communicate with us but chooses instead to communicate through human writing into a literary document that can be changed, altered, translated, taken in different ways. You have to remember that during the slavery period of time, when there was some slaves in the United States, that both the side of the slave owners and the slaves themselves would refer to the exact same verse of the Bible to prove their side of the story, because that's what the Bible does, is it allows you to take a verse and attribute it to pretty much anything you want, which is why these pastors, Joel Osteen and Creflo Dollar And these guys, Billy Graham, why these guys are so rich is because they know the secret, which is I can take these words, speak about them pretty much however I want as long as I stay within the context of Christianity, and it's nice sounding, and it looks like I'm being a man of God, and I ask for donations, and people give me 10% of their income. And I remember when Mrs. Mom one time was saying how short she was on money, and she said, well, after I give the money to God, this and that, and Mrs. said, what do you mean give money to God? And she says, well, after I give my 10% to the church. She says, Mom, that's not giving money to God. Like, that's not what you're doing. Like, how can you even say that and feel that that's what you're doing?
God doesn't need money.
Just to almost be a devil's advocate is when you said God wouldn't communicate to people through books or through writings. Well, if Satan can't read the books, then maybe that's the only way God can
That's
talk.
the secret. We just discovered it. Satan can't read. He's dyslexic.
Yep.
So do you see any other questions? Or TJ, are you still with us? Or are you sleeping? Did you fall asleep? Did your wife get mad at you?
Nope, I'm still here. I was watching ISS for a little bit, which
Did you see any of that micro-macro thing?
I didn't. I was watching it, and it was dark. They're in the dark side of the Earth, and
Oh, all the colors?
yeah, and well, it was dark, so you just kind of see like reddish.
Yeah, little specks
color.
of little color. Yeah.
But you could see what was they've got it pointed out the window looking at the ISS itself, so you could actually see that, and there's like little specks of color a little bit, but I could see the ISS in the dark, and then they were getting closer to the edge of light, which was south of Africa, and so I was sitting there watching it, and then
Let's have everybody go there. If you want to do something fun, everybody just type in. You could just type in the search ISS Live, and it's the first link that comes up. I'm going there. If you guys want to go, it'll be fun.
I do too.
So
This is what I like about TJ. You always end up doing. You always tell us
like, can you turn off your?
whenever Jeran says something like he talked about Google Earth and all these things, and then you went and kind of you go and test it to see if what he's saying is real. And then he talked about ISS Live stuff, and now you're watching it. I think that's a good example for people to see, like when Jeran talks about something or anybody talks about anything, go and check it out for yourself. TJ, you're a good example to people.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Jeran, are you seeing my message on the live ISS feed?
Let me see. I just got here. I don't even see a picture yet.
There isn't a picture. It's blue, but the chat's still working, and I just put hello up there.
First person I see is Alex Garland, 25, said, LOL, they cut it off, that's all.
Yep, and that's what I see, and then mine right above it says hello.
Not yet.
Now Fringewood.
I'm getting there.
Now Fringewood just came in above mine. It's like 0 bars on a cell phone, he says. I was like, what the hell does this have to do with the ISS?
Oh, the other day they were talking about each other's cats.
I know. So do you see Fringewood at all right now?
I see Fringewood below Alex Garland.
Yeah, see, I'm right in between Fringewood and Alex Garland. Why don't you try and type something?
I do see you. It says
see?
hello.
Okay.
I don't. Where are you? I don't.
But
so I'll tell you. There you are. I see you now. This is.
Now I also typed after the 0 bars. Then you should see me.
I see Captain Hindsight. Fringewood comes up.
I just now got the post that said it's like 0 bars on a cell phone. That showed up just now.
Okay, I just see Jeranism high just now. So yeah.
Okay, so here, watch. Follow along with me because I want to show you this macro thing. If you click the word that says videos to the left of social stream.
Okay.
Okay, then they'll bring up a whole bunch of videos.
Right.
Holy.
Okay. Hold on.
Jeez. And if you scroll down.
Oh, there it is. Got it. Yep.
If you scroll down, you're going to eventually have to hit the More Videos button. I'm trying to find somewhere where they've got the macro screen on the main thing. Just keep going, because the other day I was here and I saw it, so it's in here somewhere. Okay. Oh, no, that's not it. I love all the blue screen. Okay. So down where it says about 4 days ago, you'll see one that says ISS stream 4 days ago, 180 minutes, and on the picture it looks like a split screen.
Yep, I see it.
Okay, so it's the one that's right below the map of the Earth?
Yep, I see it.
hit play on that one.
On the one below the map of the Earth. Okay.
Right. Just hit play. I
Alright.
want to show you this.
Oh, the
what
macro
the hell?
and the micro view.
What is
What is
that?
that? That's a good question.
It is the most disgusting thing ever, too, because if you kind of let it play for a while, they'll spin this little dish on the left, and then on the right, it's like, are those supposed to be like planets or something? I mean, I'm like
It looks
really.
like a crop circle. On the one on the right, it looks like a crop circle.
All it is a zoomed-in picture of the liquid on the left.
That's
like
absurd.
It is absurd. And the fact that this is on the ISS Live channel, and you can't even. There's no description.
That's ridiculous. I have no idea what that is.
It is so.
It looks like a crop circle. It really does. The one on the right, and then the one on the left looks like a silver sphere with a bunch of discs.
Let me see if I can find it being spun. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna go ahead to. Oh boy, it looks like a pool. Jeez, I hate these things. I just laugh and laugh when I'm here. It's just so funny.
Yeah.
I thought that one thing I wanted to do was like. I might, since Monday nights are this show, there might be another night where I just watch the ISS Live because it is just hilarious and people can watch it with me and we'll just laugh.
ISS Live Party.
ISS Live Party.
Yeah, so what I was saying is when I was watching it before it went to the blue screen, so rapidly it went from being dark and then it started to change to light, and then the ISS on the very end of it got really bright, and then I don't know if it was the camera adjusting or if it was like a spotlight or something, but it'd get really bright, then kind of dim, go bright, get dim, go bright, get dim, and then there was a real hot spot right on the end. And
okay, so I'm going to go back to the live view to see if it's back.
And then all of a sudden the Earth started to show up in the background, was lit a little bit, and I'm like, well, why didn't the sun hit the Earth? Why was it just on the space station?
And that's what I've said in every one of my videos, and I get comments from people saying I'm an idiot because I don't understand how the sun works or something, and I'm like, no, it's coming up from behind the Earth, but hits the space station first on the side you're looking at. Oh, we got a picture.
Hallelujah.
So you're not an idiot if you just go to ISS and watch.
Okay, what is that orange thing there?
I love the spinning satellite right there.
Spinning satellite is the coolest thing that it has.
It's really cute. I want one.
Oh, the little. That's crazy. The little radar dish going around in circles.
Yeah, they always have that thing spinning.
This is a view I haven't seen before. This is a new one.
Yeah, it's occasionally on there, but I think if you just look at that, that's not how a ball spins. Like that's like a conveyor belt.
Yes, there's no parallax whatsoever in it. That's
None
what
whatsoever.
always kills me.
How would the clouds that are supposedly, you'd have to figure the farthest away you could see there at the edge has got to be 1,000 miles, and then what's right below you is 250 miles. How does everything move the same speed?
That cloud right there looks like a cow's head. Like right there.
Yeah,
under that
it
dark
does. I see that, yeah.
That's completely that little radar dish spinning around in circles is killing me.
What is it trying to do?
Now that we're looking at this, when I was watching it earlier, right to that top of where that satellite dish is, that thing is connected to, the very top part of that, that was where the hot spot was, where the sun was glowing off of it. But the Earth, no sun was off on the Earth at all. Was not
right, that's
lit,
when the Earth is just black, right? Yet you're saying that top piece there was getting light, which how then would the Earth not get light?
Yeah, and how is there a shadow behind that piece?
Ooh, good point.
Yeah, it's just nonsense.
Where's that coming from?
Yeah, it's like now the Earth is either that's light from the Earth shining back. Who knows?
Yeah,
but it just is so clearly. This must be one of their go-to new views, because if you look on the right where it lists all the, I don't know if you're still in Social Stream or in videos, but you'll see 9 hours ago and 12 hours ago. Ooh, I like 14 hours ago. I got to go look at that. See how the sun looks like it's doing something there?
Yeah.
I'm going to go look at that real quick. Yeah, I could spend all day here just laughing.
So that's like an arm of the ISS or something? What is that supposed to be?
Yeah, Jerry, can you share your screen on that?
I think it would really hurt things, but why is a lot of people, they don't have the ability to go there?
Apparently, they're wanting
Well,
you to share it with it.
I'm
Let
sharing
me try it. Oh, you are?
You have to have a Ustream account. I had to sign in to play something.
Let me see
I
something.
don't think I had to sign in to watch it.
Oh no, he's got his up. Okay, so I'm sharing it now. I think. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, somebody's saying, Jeran, click the presenter's icon.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm gonna hit this. Present to everyone.
Okay, now I see it on my private feed. I don't see it on the YouTube feed yet, but there's a delay. So, oh my God, it's completely cascading. You're getting
That's
video
me.
feedback. That's you? Okay.
Let me try mine instead.
Well, that's just
It's
I
like-
went back to the. Did you want to share?
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
Okay, now it just popped up on the live feed.
What, the cascading or my screen?
Your screen.
So can you see this?
Well, all I see right now, I don't see any feed from you. On the live feed, I see there's TJ's cascading going down on the live feed.
Okay, how about now?
That's
Okay.
special effects.
I don't know, maybe
Just be
TJ, maybe
careful.
you better put it on.
All right, now do you see mine? Because I think mine's on there now.
I
see a mouse.
I don't see it, no.
Oh, that's mine. Never mind.
Let me see.
I'm seeing just a blank screen.
It's blank.
It says you are now sharing your screen.
But it's on Google, the Google Hangouts.
Google
Yeah.
Plus Hangouts is sharing your screen with Google Plus.
But
Yeah,
not-
but I'm not seeing anything but blank. TJ, why don't you try it?
Well,
I'll
it
try
takes
that.
a minute or two for it to show up.
Well, I know, but I mean, we should be seeing Jeran's feed immediately. You
Well,
and
no,
I
it might
should
take
be.
a little. Well, it would take. Oh, you're saying in the Google Hangout?
Yeah, in the Hangout. On the YouTube feed, it's going to be delayed, but we should be seeing it immediately.
Okay.
I see your mouse.
I just see on Jeran. I just see all black.
Yeah, I see a mouse going around the screen is all.
Where is it? In the upper left?
Yep.
Out and upper left.
Wonder why you can't see the screen. Let me try and go to make the screen bigger. Let me see if you see this.
Maybe it's on.
Oh, I just saw a white flash.
Okay, I put it. It's a white
Now-
screen now.
Now I'm having a seizure.
Now it's a full screen.
Yep, but I'm still not seeing anything.
Breathe.
Wonder if you can't show like live video like that.
I don't know. TJ did it somehow. TJ, you want to try it again?
Yeah, I'll put Bob's. I'll put TJ's on. TJ, tell me when you're there.
Jerem is no
Let's
longer
switch.
presenting.
Jaron is no longer presenting? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's because I turned off the sharing screen. But let me try to present this to everyone.
Okay, now I see.
Okay,
I
there
see
we go.
something.
I see it.
Is that you, TJ?
I
that
see
your-
somebody. Who is that?
Okay,
That's
so
TJ.
yeah, TJ, go ahead and maximize your video.
You might. He'd have to go full screen, which might not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there you
that
go.
works.
You
Perfect.
All right, I'll do that.
Oops, you went back. There you go.
Beautiful.
I see his tags and I thought it was my browser.
I know I think this way sometimes, but this space station with that orange thing on the end, it just looks like the space station has like a penis. I'm like,
What is
they're like they purposely do that. I'm like, seriously.
Oh, of course they do. You know they do.
Oh, there's balls in there too.
They love the phallic symbols.
I love
Yes.
the hopper, like a
Uh-oh.
What's uh-oh?
Oh, I lost you guys for a second.
Oh, we're here.
Okay, cool.
My favorite is the golden aluminum foil covering. That's really
Yes. Yes, that's real realistic, isn't it?
That'll protect you from anything.
But the little radar dish just kills me.
I don't know. This just does not look real. It looks like a model to me, and that Earth in the background, like it looks like the space station is up against a wall.
Yeah,
And
this
the
is so
Earth
funny.
like,
Totally.
True.
It looks like it's
Like
up against a wall. It's not even a
It
good
looks like-
model.
no, that Earth looks like it is like some type of green screen background on a wall. It's like flat. It's not
Right.
even.
I always call it a conveyor belt. It looks like it's like moving along a little track. It's maybe something you would ride on at Disneyland.
Exactly.
Like, have you ever been on the Peter Pan ride?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like
Yep.
the Earth moves below you as you
Yep.
fly through your little thing. That's what it looks like.
And notice the clouds, of course. There's absolutely no morphing in the clouds whatsoever. In fact, I'm not even sure what they're trying to show with the clouds. They're just
Where are
kind
we
of
supposed to be
jittering
right now?
across.
I turned mine off. If you scroll down a little bit, TJ, where? Yeah, so you see all that water, yet it's supposedly over Russia.
Yeah.
How's all that water?
Oh, anytime it's over land, they always block it with clouds. And of course, when it's over ocean, you can pretty much usually just see the water. And what's interesting is I find that to be almost completely opposite when I fly. Like when we flew to Hawaii, and we were out over the ocean, it's like the clouds were completely over the ocean. And then when we got to landmass, the clouds broke and you could see the landmass. And it just seems like it's always opposite when you're watching the ISS live feed.
What is that stick that's coming out of the bottom left? Like, it just looks like a bar.
Oh, this thing here.
Yeah, what is that?
That's a good question.
If they had put any effort into anything they did.
Yeah, and this is what's so sad is like, if you give me, I don't know, $10,000, I could come up with so much of a better fake than these guys who are getting billions, and this is the best they can do is, and you know what? How can you blame them if 95% of the world will not only say this is real, but argue on behalf of it?
Yep. The foil keeps out the radiation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I saw the preview for the new Martian movie or Mars movie, whatever it was.
So sad.
And I'm like, why doesn't NASA like hook up with Hollywood? At least we'd get some stuff of like, you know what, maybe this is real.
But they did actually. They're part of that movie.
Are they?
NASA's part of the new Mars movie. Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, he wears a NASA uniform, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
Like he's a NASA astronaut. I'm pretty sure they are part of that movie.
Yeah, but I was saying is, why doesn't NASA hook up with them to get some more realistic looking stuff instead of all this crap they put out? It's like almost like they purposely want to mock everybody.
Yep.
Well, and if they did it Hollywood style, then it would be obvious that they were faking it. So they almost have to do it crappy, pixely, or people would see that they're doing it Hollywood style.
Oh, look, there's land. It's like a faint green.
That looks like Mickey Mouse to me.
Oh boy.
Look at the cloud coming above the left over here. What is that?
Yeah, that looks real.
Yeah.
Sure. Yep. I'm sold.
I'm sold too.
I'm a ball earther again. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
I live right on that ball, and maybe in a second I can run outside and get on my roof and wave at you guys.
Yeah.
I'll shine the portable sun, and you guys can see me. Yeah. Now remember, this craft here is moving 17,000 miles per hour.
Mr. Hanky in space.
50 times as fast as any of us travel, this thing's traveling.
Yeah.
I'm getting conflicting information about what's making this move. See, I thought that the space station was moving 17,000 miles an hour because the Earth was spinning that fast below it. But then there are some people that say that...
No, remember, the Earth is spinning 1,000... Now, here's what I had to learn. The Earth is spinning 1,000 miles per hour, and on the screen that you're looking at, it's spinning in the correct...
the equator.
Right. Okay. Why are we not seeing any... Why are we only seeing rotational movement on the Earth and no forward movement from the space station?
Well, here's one thing that's weird. The space station is traveling in the same direction that the Earth is rotating. So the only reason we see it working what looks like backwards is because the space station is going 17,000 miles per hour in the direction that the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles per hour.
Oh, yeah, I believe that. Uh-huh. Sure.
How does that not make sense to you guys? Do you not understand orbital mechanics, Bob?
I guess not.
Boy. So easy if you just open up a book and go to school.
Yep.
Those are my favorite comments, like, get an education.
Yeah.
That's really what I want.
Yeah, no thanks. We don't want to be educated on this.
Now, this is why a couple people tell me, well, you agree that the space station exists, because I'll get a text message here in about 5 minutes.
It exists in a swimming pool.
Well, it's about to fly over my head. So I can go outside and actually see it. But it's just going to be a little tiny white dot going over me.
Right. And I've seen that too. And you know, it goes flying across the sky. I've seen some guys actually say, in fact, one guy in particular said, yeah, I have a Meade 10-inch telescope, which is exactly what I have. And he goes, I watched that thing all day long. And I'm like, yeah, BS. you cannot even get the Meads motors to track it that precisely. And it has obviously very high precision motors on it. And there is no way that you could possibly track that thing flying across the sky.
Have you seen the pictures of it that they show? Like, this is a picture from my telescope of the ISS.
Yeah,
It looks like a little black thing.
Yeah, you know what I think it is like I said, either a hologram or it's some sort of a really weirded out looking airplane with extra like wings or tail sections or something, you know, to simulate to simulate the solar collectors.
Right, and I think something's up there that's taking pictures. So I just picture the ISS as being a very high flying plane, maybe 100,000 feet, maybe twice as high as planes go, and just taking photos, and that's the light that you see, and they just make sure that the light doesn't beep, and since planes don't fly that high, it's not in any danger of hitting another plane.
Well, and not only that, I mean, this thing is supposedly at 250 miles high, and even if it is the size of a football field, yeah, I saw that, even if it's the size of a football field, you still cannot see a football field from 250 miles away. Now, of course, somebody's going to come back and say, oh, yeah, but it's reflecting the sun's light back down.
Bullshit.
Yeah, that is complete BS. Because you notice as it traverses the sky, it never seems to lose or fall out of the sunlight, even if it's dark outside. So I don't know exactly what they're doing, how it's lit, but I do know that, you know, what we're seeing is complete fabrication, and it is no ISS, that's for sure.
TJ, go to the list of videos on the right there, and then scroll up to the top. I just want to find one where the sun is coming up. What is that fifth one? Click the one that has the sun look like it's... Look at the tire tracks! Oh god, that was classic.
Oh, go back and play that again.
I don't know which one you were on, but there was some tire tracks.
Oh, I see it.
It's a live feed. It just came back.
Oh, that one. Nice tire tracks. Look at that little circle thing coming over there. I see clouds like that all the time.
Yeah, so of course this is supposed to be over landmass, of course, right? You can never see any features because of
is that stick the same stick that we saw before? That stick is now on the right?
I don't know. The one that was on the left, I don't see it anymore.
Yeah, it looks like it flipped all the way around, and it's still moving. See how it's slowly moving counterclockwise?
Oh, man, what is that?
I don't know. They like play games, I think. Like, let's make this stick move.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
So, now go back, because I want to do that one with the sun coming over, just so I can see that real quick. It's like the fifth one down. See that one that says, I can't, yeah, what is that? Holy smokes.
Oh, man, some good quality there.
This is what our money pays for.
Yeah.
I think that's a concert, like at some stage.
2 Live Crew is playing.
Yeah, 2-packs up there.
Oh, boy. That's where he went.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, see if you can fast forward it a little ahead so something happens. How anybody can watch this and then say, this is my proof that space exists.
Yeah, that's right up there with the little dots on the moon, you know, for the lunar reconnaissance orbiter.
Oh man, that is so funny. Yeah, so anyway, I just love that people are getting to see this, because this is what I'm trying to say is you get no footage of anything that would ever prove anything at all.
I'll pitch back.
Oh, okay. So your screen went blue.
Like, what could that be? Why would this be your camera view? When you go outside, Bob, to set up your camera, do you ever point it right at your garage and take pictures?
Oh yeah, I always try to go for maximum raster. You know,
from 5 feet away and say, here, this will suffice, people.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I think it might be. So not it is or whatever possibility. There's this thing called the globe projections or whatever that are at a few science museums right now, and they're just huge ass like projections that project a perfect sphere, and you can walk around it. It's huge, and it projects a moving image. And I think maybe they just put a little model up in front of a camera and then put it in front of one of these globe projection spheres.
Do they have? Yeah. Do they have sex written upside down in the clouds on those projections?
Always.
Find it everywhere.
Look at this gold foil. That is pretty.
It's a copper.
Now, here is where I laugh too. Like, where is the Earth and where is the sun? How is
Yes.
that part of the space station getting sun, but there's no Earth anywhere below it?
And why are we even getting a picture of this? What is this supposed to be?
This is the closed-up.
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that these are just miniaturized models. Like those two holes right there are earphone jacks.
Wow.
I don't know what else it could be. It is so sad.
Well, it's obvious they don't need to be protected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the micrometeorites, they go in there. That's like the entry point for micrometeoroids.
And whatever this
Or
thing is, there's no motion to it either.
No, it's moving 17,000 miles per hour.
Oh, well, okay, that's
And
close enough to
66
zero.
And 66,000 miles per hour around the sun,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
moving at 584,000 miles per hour around the galaxy.
Right.
But you can't feel it.
So if you don't understand orbital mechanics, I can't help you.
Yeah. Well, God, I guess I'm lost.
Yeah, you stupid flat earthers.
Yep.
That's
This
just
is classic.
dumb.
It is so dumb. It is just really.
I just want to turn it off.
I just want to shake my head and like cry to sleep now.
I don't want this to be in existence.
It's really sad because when I say things on my videos, it's like this really gives me little hope of the human race, because I look at it and nothing of it says real at all. I even tried the last time I was watching the channel with my wife, like 2 nights ago. I even went there and said, I'm going to go to the ISS and try and prove that it's real. And I can't even come close to even starting.
Something bad happens.
Like
every
something
time.
bad happens every time. Like this. How could anything be moving? Have you ever driven your car and the shadows on the car stay exactly the same? So how would this thing's going 17,000 miles per hour, yet the shadow
I should be whipping by it.
right is staying right there.
And there's no turbulence.
Yeah, it's like it's just insanity. And then it's like, how does anybody go here and just accept this? And once they've heard any of my videos and said, I'm going to go there and check it myself, go look at my videos for all the people who link the ISS live and say, here, proof the Earth's a globe. Ha! Someone feels stupid. Like, have you seen those? You're like, what are you talking about? Like, that's your proof? This is what your mind allows you to go to this and say, oh, this idiot flat earther's talking when they've got this proof right here, the gold-covered garbage can.
It's like naive arrogance, or like the arrogance in something you don't have no knowledge of.
Yeah, they just, honestly, I think it feels like, and I understand, and Bob understands, and TJ understands, that it sucks to have your entire life broken apart. But you get over it. You just have to accept the fact that
Get over it.
you just have to kind of come to that conclusion, like, wait a second, is there a chance that my entire life I've been lied to? And it's...
Just have to go for a walk and breathe and realize that your life is not over once you realize that Earth's not a globe. Just go for a walk and breathe, and then come back and sit down and just breathe, and you'll get over it.
You have to breathe no matter what, really.
Oh, yeah.
Now this video here has audio. At first I was like, who's talking on our Hangout? I realized it was this video.
Oh yeah, they have audio
what they were
sometimes.
saying.
It's terrible.
Okay, so
We
this isn't a
watched-
live feed?
No, this one we're watching a video. We went back. Well, everything they ever taped is chronicled there. You can just go down those videos, and it's every 3 hours. You just go back in time 3 hours, 3 hours, 3 hours, 3 hours.
Right.
Well, I think they have to do it because if they didn't, then people would question that. So
Oh, gotcha.
they just... What, now it's moving?
They could just say
Well, I'm moving
No, I
it
know,
forward,
but-
and it's getting real bright.
That's one thing I do also often myself, is I play with that time, because you can actually see like pieces moving on the thing. Oh, now we get in the shadow.
Ooh, this is fun.
Like this bar thing here is getting thicker.
Ooh.
Watch, I'll jump it and it just got really
Oh
thick.
goodness gracious! Oh no, that's the solar panel.
Is it?
I mean,
Oh,
it
solar
looks like
panels.
crap, but that's what they would tell you.
Oh, I see the word Canada written there.
Oh.
That's the Canada arm that grapples with the dragon,
Birthing the dragon.
births the dragon.
Whatever.
So it's like, where's the Earth? So Bob, do you know that they say? So you've seen how the shuttle takes off and then turns onto its back, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then supposedly that's how it gets out to space, right?
Hmm.
And then the whole time it's in space, it's upside down. You know that.
Right.
Compared to the Earth,
Right.
right? And then when it needs to come back, the first thing it does is flips while upside down, turns its nose the other direction,
Oh, what's going on?
because then it needs to fold over the complete top piece and then enter the atmosphere from the black side down.
What just happened?
It's in my new video. You'll love it because there's an actual image of everything. Whoa, what is that?
Ooh.
Lightning.
Oh.
Oh, here we
the
go. I just found something really good.
All right.
Wait till you
What
see
is
one.
this? What is going on?
Oh, this is the good stuff.
I'm giving up.
You could. That looks
It's like it's in a studio. Look, you can now see past that little.
It's like a
curve.
video game.
That is completely bizarre.
It's
What
kinda
is going
fishy.
on? You can actually see the reflection. See up here, that green light flashing?
Yeah, what's that all about?
It's a reflection.
Oh, yeah. Looks like they accidentally went to a camera that shows that's like the.
What are those,
inside-
like maps? Are these the sheets that go by? Look at these are like paper maps of the clouds.
Uh-oh.
Well, I've always said that I always thought it was kind of like a sheet going by on a player piano.
Don't change this, TJ, because
This is important.
this is good. I want to make sure we have this on the video.
But see, this is what we mean. Like, we're not planning this. We just went to ISS all random, and there's crap going on.
But those look like sheets of paper, and then there's like a little ladder or something here on the
or
right.
something, yeah, like a chain or.
Right, like I said, a conveyor belt.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
That's
there's like
nuts.
this like oval behind it. Now what's this? Now the sun's coming up over there on the upper right. Oh,
God.
great!
Oh, blue screen. My favorite.
Ass
Yes.
clowns.
Well, of course they don't want you to see anything too important.
They need to
Oh.
stop operating with Windows. They better get a better computer.
Yeah, yeah. Just don't get Windows 10.
Oh,
Is it that?
I haven't got it, so.
No, yeah, that's right. You were going to ask me about that, and my
Well, I
answer
just
is
decided not to get it for now.
exactly. Stay away from Windows 10. That is, they should call that Windows Spy Edition. I think it would be a more appropriate.
Yeah, I heard that people are getting files missing and all kinds of stuff.
Really?
Well, basically, what happens is when you sign the terms of service agreement, or not sign it, but agree to it when it installs it, basically, you're just giving up all of your Fourth Amendment rights. You're giving up all of your rights to any privacy. Microsoft then has the right to go in, access any of your information, sell any of your personal information to anybody that they want to. They can hand it over to the federal government, yada, yada, yada. And this goes, my whole thing with it in the first place is why on earth would Microsoft give away their flagship product? I mean, Windows 7 and 8 were actually pretty good operating systems, much better than like Windows Millennium Edition or Windows Vista. So, I mean, if it was Vista or Millennium Edition, I could see Microsoft trying to make amends by giving away 10. But, there was really Windows 7. I still use 7. I love Windows 7. And Windows 8 is stable, even though I find it a little cumbersome. But, for them to just give away Windows 10, I'm like, okay, what's the catch?
Nothing's
and the catch
free.
is, yeah, nothing's free. They sold out to the government so that they can have 100% access to everything that you have. And once you hit that terms of service agreement that says, I agree to these terms of service, you have just handed your entire life over to Microsoft to do with what they will. And so I tell my customers, anybody I know, just don't. And especially Windows 10 doesn't have very many good features anyway that are all that great. One of the neatest things about it is you can actually write on the new Internet Explorer or the new browser that they have. But other than that, it's pretty lame, and I certainly wouldn't get it. Oh, and the performance is awful on it also. Very bad.
I think they made Windows 10 because Windows 7 was working beautifully for the people. Like, you can control stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, we have to take away your options.
Yeah. I
And
love
skip
7.
9. We got to skip 9 and go straight to 10.
Yeah, I love 7.
I'll tell you, my friend, she works at a hospital, and this weekend we were having a discussion about Windows 10, which I haven't heard anything about it. And she was telling me how it's just set up to spy on everything you do. And since she works at a hospital, they have a new system there. They are required to use Internet Explorer because the system will only work on Internet Explorer. And when they log in to check their personal stuff like their hours and paychecks and all that, their login information for that is exactly the same information as the patient login information. So now Microsoft can have access to all the patient's charts and records and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That is so bad.
Yeah. So
Somebody
much.
asked what I do for a living in the chat, so you can go to my book site. It's UBBBK, which used to be unbelievablebooks.com, and then we shortened it to UBBBK, and
Something
buy a
that's
book.
equally hard to repeat.
Yeah, exactly. Not that anything I've ever done is smart, so don't be looking for that. But
Those good intentions.
yeah, and somebody else wrote and said that I'm selling lies, and so how can I say that I'm about truth if I sell lies? And hopefully people understand when they buy a book that it's written by somebody who is not claiming to be God. So therefore, there's such books called fiction, and there's other books called nonfiction. And hopefully you know which one you're choosing. If you choose one by Stephen King or Dean Koontz, those are not real stories. The people are fictional, and they're just meant to be like a movie is. And if you buy a book that's about truth or fact, claims cannot be made in that book that are not true, or else the people get sued. So that's how books work.
Do you remember Costco when they put out they had a bunch of
Funniest
Bibles,
thing ever.
and they put fiction stickers on the Bibles? It was pretty funny.
They actually got in trouble and had to remove them and like apologize.
It was
I'll
great.
bet.
Great.
Oh,
So that's what I do
awesome.
for a living. And
That's what I do all day. I post books.
that's what Missa does all day. She posts books. We've probably got, I would guess, 15 to 17,000 books, and we probably have 2,000 or 3,000 listed. And that's because it takes forever to list a book, because you have to list pages, copyright, author, genre.
I don't think there's a single wall in our house that doesn't have a book. Or
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
it's fun.
So has anybody seen what the stock market finally wound up doing today? Did it close at least a
Oh,
little
did
bit
it
higher
crash?
condition? Oh God!
Crashed the other day, yeah.
Well, it didn't start out good this morning. Believe me.
No, again?
Yeah, again, I mean, it was absolutely horrible. They had one crash, and then we started several hundred points down. And I looked at Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is.
It tanked.
Yeah, it tanked way down. It's down at 204.91. Wow. Right now, 204.91. That's awful.
It was up around 310 just like 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. But, then they got all that stuff going on with, what they're going to do with the transactions, because I guess the blockchain is getting too complex to process in any reasonable amount of time. So they're talking about changing the Bitcoin system. So I don't know. I was going to ask you what you thought of that, or if you were even following it.
You mean the fork?
Yes, the fork.
Yeah, I think it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. It's bizarre. So
Yeah, I don't like. I mean, the whole purpose of it to start was having no entity in control of it. But then when you have the foundation, and they have the ability to do things like fork it and things like that, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like what it was intended for. Oh, now that thing's moving. See it?
Yeah, I saw it.
It's starting to move.
NASA, what are you doing?
yeah, I wonder what that triangular thing is on the right next to the hole punch or stapler or whatever the hell that thing is.
I think it's the hat they wear.
I don't see
Well, okay, it's see the gray thing that looks like it has a little round bar at
Yeah.
the top of the gold, and then if you look immediately to the right of that, there's like this triangular piece of paper, sort of
I think
thing.
it's a clouds. Looks like clouds.
It might be like a sheet hanging over something. That's just
Yeah.
the part we see.
Yeah, it looks like part of the sheet that's on the left-hand side here also.
Yeah.
I was like, what is that doing up in space? Like that. It's like, seriously, guys?
But they didn't tell us they're printing out the clouds as they take pictures of them.
Oh, right. That's what they're doing.
Maybe they're making money up there. That's where they make the money.
Yeah.
Look
And
at all that gold they're
And
storing.
you know what?
Yeah, that's Fort Knox's. All of Fort Knox's gold is now in sheets.
You know what I just realized? You know that gray thing with the little round bar?
Yeah.
It looks like it has a toggle switch to the left of it.
Where are you looking now?
The gray thing with the bar in the middle, and then if you look
Okay.
on the left side of that, That thing looks like a toggle switch, an old school toggle switch with the
The
chrome.
little flip thing.
Yeah, it does look like a chain right there for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, right on the
Yeah,
left-hand
top right
side.
above it.
That's what the hell is that? God, they just completely lose me sometimes on these pictures.
Is anybody talking?
And like,
about
are
it
those
on the
supposed to be
ISS chat?
stars back there? Now see how the stars are starting to come through the gold foil?
Does anybody have the ISS chat open? Is anybody talking about it?
Oh, I don't know. I turned mine off because it's too many things were running.
Because I want to know if anyone's asking questions.
I'm looking. See, Lord V. Doom's talking about the tip of his penis.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back there then. That's more fun than this.
Yeah.
It's more fun for me.
So.
Or is he saying that's what's on the screen right now with that dot in the middle?
I don't know. Pretty crazy.
What is going on? This is disgusting. I mean, now that foil doesn't even look real. Look at the left side.
No, it's turning into the surreal picture of something.
Like someone was painting over here.
Yeah, watercolors.
Oh well. Anyway, God, it's getting to be about 10:21, guys. Probably.
Yeah, we'll definitely close it off. And what's going on?
There we go.
Wait.
I just boarded, so now we're.
Well, now we're backing up. Maybe we're going to see what this is.
What?
Look at the light at the bottom. Look at the little light in like a room with a door or something.
Oh my gosh, something is happening.
Oh, watch. They're going to go to a blue screen. You watch. Because whatever it is, like, oh shit, we can't show that.
I'm surprised they haven't done it already.
Well, the crazy thing is this is recorded.
Oh, it's a
Oh.
Recording.
Like anybody can just go there and watch it.
Yeah. See, they got their like cardboard over here, all wrapped in foil, real nice, ready for Christmas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ready for Christmas.
Now I'm really confused. Now that this whole thing right here is backed up away from it, now I'm really lost.
Yeah, I'm so lost.
But what is that little folder there?
The folder.
On the left-hand side is like a little book.
Yeah, I know.
Here.
Opening.
And then what's the printed material back behind it? You know, that looks like a map laying out there or something. You know, and then the other half of it's on the right side of it.
Yeah, I would totally end the show right now, but we can't just because this is on. I have to see where this goes.
Okay.
That is too funny. I don't even know.
There's
no words to describe.
When there's something weird and it don't look good, who are you gonna call?
GLOBEBUSTERS.
See, you guys got it.
Alright.
We'll have to make a parody song.
This is like a never-ending gold background because I don't see an edge.
Oh, here it goes. It's going fast now.
That's going further.
There's like this, and there's like this grid in the background. There's all these dots that go up and they go across, and they all seem to be pretty equal in
Every
space.
time you... Go ahead.
I thought I heard Crying Box was going to say something there for a minute.
It's spherical.
I am
Did it
so
just
lost.
shift to the left? Like 30 seconds ago, obviously, not just now.
I don't know. I'm just really trying. You know, what's this?
Try and fast forward it a little bit, TJ.
I don't know. There's a lot happening right now. See, we're at
Don't
2:11.
fast forward.
Well, you can always rewind it. That's the thing about these videos. At least I've never seen them change anything that was once on there and then wasn't later.
Yeah, I'm sure they go over it several times before they publish them.
I don't know. I think they're lazy.
Bob, you know they don't because I've actually watched before. They take the 3 hours live, and then that 3-hour live video drops right below it. A new one starts, and I've tried to because I thought that would be good proof for people if I could ever find something that was shown live and then taken out. But I've never seen it. I've never been able to find it.
You're right, because you're right. They wouldn't have. They would have retracted that footage that you captured with the moon jumping all over the place otherwise,
Oh,
right?
that one was the best.
I got another one in my video that's coming out tonight. You'll love it.
Where's
Okay.
it going?
The moon goes like a little left, little right, little left, little right.
Where's this thing going?
So we're moving away from all of this, all this gold and this whatever that round object is. We're backing away from it.
Oh, or it's moving away from us. Maybe?
You know,
Well, yeah,
Jeran,
one of the two.
when we were talking about that last week, Jeran, about about your video where the moon was jumping all around.
Mhm.
Somebody actually left a comment, and I couldn't believe it. They said, well, what they had to be doing was they were just adjusting the camera at the ISS.
Oh boy.
Oh,
I'm like, seriously?
This is like liars.
That's the crazy thing to me is the amount of people that they will. It's like we must have proof of everything we say, right? If we say the Earth is flat, we better have every detailed mathematical proof. But for their things, any excuse will do. Any excuse. What is that thing now down there?
It's like a propeller.
It is like a propeller, like a ceiling fan.
It was filmed in 1964 because it's getting it looks a little fuzzy, like kind of like dim.
It certainly was a lot better quality a minute ago. Now I can't even tell that thing doesn't even look like a chain now.
No, it looks like some sort of space-age gear shift.
This is the secret space that we don't know about from Hoagland.
I really just want to see a human hand just go in and touch something. That's all I want to see.
The gold is the firmament. That's it.
That's the barrier between Earth and then space. That's the gold thing.
Yep.
Let's go up there and get some, Bob.
Yes, sir.
We should do some more stuff like this for our hangouts. Just sit there and watch stuff and talk about it.
Well, that's what I said. It would be fun just to. I do that, and then also what's fun is every time they have a launch, just watching their stupid launches.
I think like the last like 30 minutes of our shows on Monday should be ISS time.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
What is that thing down there?
That's cool.
I don't know. It looks like a torpedo bay.
Air around.
Ooh, I see some blue coming in the left corner up at the top. What is that? Ooh.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Yep, that's what it is. The thing in the middle, that's where they actually, that actually screws the torpedo, back of the torpedo tube down. That's where they load the torpedoes from.
You mean the meteors?
Yeah, them too.
Oh, it's going fast
good.
now.
Here we go. We're moving.
Where guys are going?
Oh wait, I think we may have paused.
Oh.
They stopped.
Yeah, we're moving now. We're kind of.
The gold foil is going to end up in the atmosphere, burn up in the atmosphere. That's another thing. If people say we have a problem with trash, right? Why don't we just fly all the trash to space and drop it in the atmosphere? It burns up and everybody's fine.
Right.
Oh, perfect. Brilliant.
You know, I should be a NASA scientist. I don't know why I ended up selling books.
I know. You know, I think your best idea ever, Jeran, was like, why fly all the way to the moon? Just launch a space vehicle, go up into orbit, wait for the moon to come to you, and bada bing, 2 hours later, you're on the moon.
I know, I don't understand it.
You know?
But then I get told that I'm stupid because I don't understand orbital mechanics and that the speed is only relative to the item you're speaking about. So if you're speaking about the Earth and the moon, then they together go around the sun at 66,000 miles per hour. But if you get outside of the Earth, you're still stuck in the Earth-Moon system.
Amazing how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. Just explain things away with fantastical cartoon shit, and I'm supposed to be like, oh, okay, hey, it sounds good.
I don't remember whose video it was, but they were interviewing one of the guys that were the astronauts that went to the moon, and they were asking about like the Van Allen belt, and he's like, I don't know anything about it. And like this guy, he's old, like gray hair, like old. I can't remember which.
Yeah.
And so he's like,
beam, yeah.
he's like, no, we didn't go through the Van Allen belts because we didn't go that high when we went to the moon. And so,
yep.
And he's like, oh, well, then we went right through them.
Yeah. It's like, well, there were people, and he mentioned when they went into space and how high up they were, and they saw flashes of light because they were too close to the radiation. He's like, oh, yeah, see, now if you're out there, you've got to close your eyes and you've got to look really hard. When you look really hard, then you'll see little flashes of light, but if you're not looking really hard, you won't see them. And he's like, but what about the Van Allen belts?
Just pay attention.
And he's like, well, see, the Van Allen belts, they weren't discovered when we went, and they didn't discover, like, the flashes of radiation, so that didn't affect us. It's like, are you serious? Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that guy's a joke. The funniest thing is, have you ever seen him when he's swearing on the Bible, saying that he went to the moon, and then he says, like, okay, I swear, you know.
He's repeating the guy.
Yeah, the guy says, and under penalty of treason, and he's like, no, not treason.
Oh, yeah.
He starts arguing about that. He's like, what is treason? He says, well, that's against your country. Yeah, I'm not saying that. It's like, well, if you're saying you went to the moon and we didn't, that's treason. No, I won't. I'm not swearing that.
And then he does. He's
No.
So funny.
That's amazing.
Now it looks fake as could be. I don't know why when it was zoomed up close it actually looked like real things.
Now it does? I was going to say, it's always looked fake to me. Except for those maps. I'm trying to figure out what those maps are next to this little...
Well, now they look completely like CGI.
Whoa.
Whereas before it actually looked like physical things. Like that little...
Oh, now it's getting darker. As we...
Dark side of the earth. Dark side of the earth, guys.
It's going to go blue screen any minute. What is behind it on the left? Now look at whatever that blue is back there is not moving.
No, that's probably supposedly supposed to be the Earth, but of course they have enough of it out of frame that they figure they can get away with it not having it rotate.
I really do think there's a lot of people in NASA that are purposely putting out this kind of stuff to wake people up. Oh, great.
Oh, there it went.
But not blue screen. This is like old school.
Yeah, color bars. Color bars.
Oh, yeah, that happens.
Oh,
Do we go back to live? Is this live?
Nope.
Oh, nope.
No, this is a recorded. That's what we went back to.
Earth.
This is a test of the emergency hoaxing system.
Yes.
Wait, our little spinning satellite's not spinning.
Oh,
Why is it not spinning? It has to be spinning. Where is it?
Dish
There's
Network
like
must have
some
gone
kind
up
of line or bar or something coming down.
Oh, I always see that. See, and it even goes up. It goes all the way up. Keep drawing your mouse
Yeah,
up.
it is. Yeah, see it right here.
Yeah.
It's like string that's like, or wire.
Is that the sound of the earth? I heard a boo boo boo.
Okay. Well, I've seen enough.
All right, and on that note.
On that note, guys, join us again next week for more ISS hilarity and other interesting happenings in the Flatlands. Bob, anything to say before we go?
No, not a whole lot. I'm just looking at the comments. I see Inchi's in there. I've been waiting to hear back from you from a while. I will say that you will hear back from me very soon. Just got back from Maui and kind of resting up after the vacation. But he is wanting to talk about the sunrise and sunset position, that the thing that I showed you, Jeran, and he's very anxious to get an answer on that. So that is coming. Never fear. Now that I'm back, I will be getting serious about producing these models. Cammie's already in there. She's been working on her model this whole time that we've been talking. So it is coming. So. And
Tell her I said hello. You don't mean Jesus, do you?
Jesus?
The model is
Who's coming? Okay, I was
oh. Yeah, Jesus is coming, absolutely. Anyway, that's all I have from here, and we'll have that information out as soon as we can, and we'll make a nice presentation out of it.
TJ, any final words on the show tonight, or the beautiful display of realism by ISS?
No, don't have anything to say. Just have a good night, everyone, and see you next week.
Babe, anything? Parting comments for the 180 people watching?
No. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks to everyone who's watching, or who watched, or who will watch.
Yes.
That's it. I'm not very good with words.
None of us are. No, and I thank everyone for watching as well. I see somebody says they're going to unsub me for some reason, so that's fine.
Yes.
Again, I didn't force anybody to watch this. You don't have to watch this if you don't want to.
But it's really fun.
But it is fun to watch, and I think you'll learn a little bit, and we learn a little bit each week, and love to hear people's questions. And I think Bob made a good point a week or two ago when he said that we should cover some of the issues with the flat Earth. So maybe this week, if you do have a issue with the flat Earth that you think is something that we need to bring up, so any kind of anomaly or something that you don't think works, why don't you just send an email to jeranism at Yahoo and just subject it something like for the show, question for the show, something like that, and I'll gather all those questions ahead of time, and then we'll try and answer some of the, or bring up at least, we may not have an answer, but we'll bring up some of the issues with the flat Earth for next week.
Do you have any homework assignments for people?
Same ones. And I love mathematics, but if you read the Wikipedia article on mathematics, top to bottom, you will see that there is an issue with mathematics and being considered part of science because of the issues we've brought up. That it can prove reality once you have seen the reality, meaning you can use math to decide how money should be separated, etc., because we've seen the reality that we've had $1 and need to split it between 5 people, and we knew that we needed to give each person 20 cents. And then if you project that out a little bit and try it again with $100, or try it again with $1,000, or try it again with 10,000, that will always prove your reality. So at that point, you can now use math to operate in place of money, and that will hold true pretty much to infinity, except for if you try and split $1 between 3 people, then you will quickly realize that it's hard to give each person 33.3 cents.
So basically, they should study up on their mathematics with regard to space or something.
Well, the homework isn't going over well, Jeran.
I guess not.
You have to have a specific assignment.
I would say read that. Read Wikipedia, and because that is where they will send you every time. They always love Wikipedia because that is the, what do you call it, majority belief, I guess. Is that what you would call Wikipedia?
Yeah, I think, you think it's funny because there was this big thing about Wikipedia several years ago about the schools wouldn't even let students use it as reference material. Now it's everything. So it's bizarre.
Yeah, it certainly is.
I have a homework assignment. If people want to try this. Okay, so, and I've been trying to, it takes a long time because timeanddate.com, remember Bob, you asked me if timeanddate.com seems to be accurate when it comes to like where the moon is in the sky or whatever.
Right.
So what I did was, I mean, I look at that site almost every day because I want to see like where the moon is, and I'm pretty sure it's accurate because I've never gone out there and it doesn't look like it, or it's not in the spot that it says. But what I've been trying to do is like on a map, because it shows if you type in your location or any location, it'll show you the moon phase of the whatever current time and what the moon phase is. And so I kind of I've been trying to do this, but it's hard. So maybe someone else is smarter and faster to type in what the current moon phase is, and then see where the moonlight world map. There's a moonlight world map on there, and see what locations on the Earth can actually see the moon, and then it shows you like the direction of where the moonlight is, and I don't know, just to see if that's possible on a globe. If someone in South Africa can see the moon and someone in America can see the moon, that couldn't be possible. But so I don't know if people want to play with that. It's kind of an interesting eye opener. So.
Yep, very cool.
That's all.
All right, awesome. And that'll be it, guys. So,
TJ, does he have anything to say?
TJ, did you have final words? I forgot.
No, but I was going to ask you, you're going to be on the Ball or Skeptic this week?
That is true. I'm on Wednesday morning's show. So, well, it's Wednesday morning for me. I'm not sure everyone else, but it's Wednesday at 5 a.m. my time, or I think.
Oh my God.
California?
Yeah, I know. It's always fun to get up that early and be on the show, but I did want to be on. I know they had Red's Rhetoric last week
Terrible.
being a jerk, which is kind of expected. But I just wanted to comment again on that show. So hopefully they're going to be discussing last week's show, and then also wanted to bring up some points regarding mathematics and why it is very simple for Red's Rhetoric to get on there and explain things mathematically, as I've said on this show. That is not hard to do. It is actually, of course, going to be proof, because that's the whole point of their model, is it's proven mathematically. So it's not something that people should expect a globe earther cannot do. They can absolutely prove their model mathematically. Unfortunately, it all needs to be seen in reality, and none of us feel like we're spinning. None of us feel like we're flying. None of us see the sun as being 92 million miles away. As I've described with eclipses, I mean, just again, if you just think about the eclipse and the fact that even when the sun goes, the moon goes in front of the sun, that happens in what, like 3-4 hours, the whole thing. Well, if you think about that movement, How does that happen in 3 or 4 hours unless the moon circles the Earth in a day? They say the moon circles the Earth in 28 days, yet will pass by the sun in 3 or 4 hours. That would mean its entire orbit is, 25 to 50 hours max. It's the same thing coming the other way. When the Earth's shadow goes in front of the sun during a lunar eclipse, that happens even quicker, like 1 to 2 hours, which, again, that's a pretty far distance for the moon to be coming around the Earth, and yet it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Details.
Who needs them, huh?
All right.
All right, guys, we'll talk to you guys next week or in the future. Be nice to everyone. Don't lie to anyone. Don't call people the Antichrist.
Antichrist.
Oh, sorry, gosh.
Don't call people an Antichrist, yes.
Don't call people an Antichrist, because maybe they're not. Maybe they're actually trying to help people and try and do the right thing, and it's not a cool thing to say. And open your mind, because believe it or not, there's truth inside. There's Jeranism. Till next time, much peace.
Peace.